Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's school committee meeting. Daryl, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have a consent agenda, the minutes from September 27th, 2018, and oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes or anything else? All right, all those in favor of approving the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. We have two sections in our meeting for input from interested citizens, one now and one at the end of the meeting. We are going to have a presentation from Chief Pennard about a potential second school resource officer. After he makes his presentation and the school committee asks him for questions and comments, we'll have it. If anybody's here specifically for that, that would be the time to come up for that. Unless you don't want to stay that long, you got to get home or go to wherever you got to go next, then feel free to come up. If there's anything else you want to talk about other than that, and you want to do it now, anybody who has any business for the school committee, come on up to the podium. You got to come up to the podium to use the microphone for the television audience, and just name and street, and then.
Sorry, I thought that it was acceptable to present my concerns now, not at the end. So
you can do whatever you want.
Right.
I'm just letting people know that we can do it as part of the discussion after Chief Pennard's presentation. But if you're more comfortable doing it now, that's fine.
Yeah, if I could.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Maggie Buckley. I'm a resident on Long Lake Road. A few months back, I attended a meeting here that was focused on the social and emotional behavioral curriculum, and I had hoped to learn more about the safety measures being taken and practiced in the schools. The SRO was briefly discussed, and a high school student came up forward to share her concerns in the regard of the drills being practiced. This meeting gave me great perspective to, as a parent, to better understand what is and isn't being taught in our schools, and it seriously piqued my interest to learn more. So from a personal perspective, my husband and I have a 7- and 4-year-old that both attend Shaker Lane. They love walking and riding bikes to school, and the kids are always very excited to see an officer at the crosswalk to assist them, or simply just a presence to help with traffic. They enjoy visiting with the officers in the cafeteria. They enjoy seeing them at High Five Friday, and they especially enjoy when the officers visit the classrooms. This past summer, our 7-year-old son decided that he wanted to share his concerns about the safety at the crosswalk with the chief of police. So while we as his parents encouraged him to share those concerns, he independently wrote a letter. He brought the letter to the station. He hand-delivered it to Chief Pennard, who took the time to discuss the issues that were concerns of our sons. We strongly believe that Brady's courage and confidence had everything to do with his experiences at the school and around the town with the SRO and the other officers. This brings me to the belief in the very important, great influence of these officers with our children. I believe teaching our children the police are here to keep us safe. They're also role models in our community. They work with our schools, and the relationship that they provide would foster a long-term prevention with the potential to deter students with student incidents. I do believe it is our responsibility as parents, teachers, board members, police, and so on, to please work together as a team. We need to build and continue a healthy, safe environment here in Littleton, and I do hope that this is a priority on your agenda. There is no dollar amount that should ever negate the safety and well-being of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else has any business before the school committee? Again, there will be at least one other opportunity, probably two. All right, seeing none, thank you. Move into recognition. Munchie.
Dr. Harrington will start with item 1, and we'll actually go into item 2 as well.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to come before you tonight and continue our annual tradition around this fall to present National Merit Scholar commended students before the board in the town. The press release has gone out already to the papers, and some people may already know about it. We also have another additional recognition tonight for an Academic Excellence Award for 2 of our students who are with us tonight. So I'd like to share with you some comments that were shared with the local papers in announcing these students for their excellent performance on the PSAT. Commended students throughout the country are recognized for their outstanding performance on PSAT, which in high school is this Saturday. And we want to recognize their exceptional academic promise. Littleton High School's commended students placed among the top 5% of more than 1.6 million students who took the PSAT. And there's a quote from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation spokesperson. The young men and women being named semifinalists and commended students have demonstrated outstanding potential for academic success. He added, we hope this recognition will help broaden their educational opportunities and encourage them as they continue their pursuit of academic success. I'd like to, I know 2 of the students I believe could not be here tonight due to other commitments, and they were, they had things they couldn't miss. They did reach out to us and extend that, so we'll recognize them individually at school. I know one of them is certainly here today. So I'd like to read their names, and if they're here tonight, if they could come forward and be recognized by the superintendent of the school board. I'd like to recognize as a commended student in the 2019 National Merit Scholarship Program, Alea Flockhart, Carrington McLeod, and Jack Palaya. Carrington's here. You got it, Steve?
Come on up, John.
Oh, you want me to?
Of course.
All right. She's a little woman.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. One more. Got it.
Well, you're not done yet, Dr. Clunchy. We do have some other students we want to recognize tonight for their outstanding performance. They remain in the National Merit Scholarship Program contest, and they are 2019 National Merit Scholar semifinalists. They will continue into the finalists round, and we'll see how they do as they apply to be a finalist. And so we have tonight certificates of recognition as a semifinalist, National Merit Scholar Program. We have Ella Heitmeyer and Sarah Gordon. Congratulations. Don't go anywhere.
One more here. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. And one more. Got it.
Yeah, I need you to stay right there. We have another recognition for you. Yep, you're not done. We had this planned, the PSAT, the National Merit Scholarship recognition we had already scheduled. We knew about this weeks ago, but this just came in, so we're happy to announce to you tonight. It just happens to be the same 2 young women before us. An award for academic growth and student leadership and learning. And this is presented, is an award that's chosen by the superintendent with input from school personnel. And it's through the National School Development Council. And the superintendent is pleased to recognize, on behalf of the school committee and the high school, Ella Heitmeyer and Sarah Gordon. All good stuff in the college application. Congratulations. I think we got the photo.
I think we.
Make sure you tell your guidance counselor.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Heitmeyer. Thank you, students and families, for coming out. As always, you're invited to stay, but you don't have to. All right, moving on to our student.
We can do those presentations at the end.
That's simply not fair. Our student representative report. We have a tag team tonight.
So at Shaker Lane, yesterday they had their monthly community meeting and focused on the H in Heart for Honesty. Students in Mrs. McGrath's classroom shared a skit on being honest and recited an honesty poem. They also successfully completed their first Alice drill this morning with the support of the Littleton Police and Fire Departments, and another drill will be planned in the spring. At the Littleton Middle School, they also completed their safety drills last week. And they're also getting ready for an upcoming parent-teacher conference on the 24th and 25th.
So at the high school, last week we had our Alice training drill and it was very well received with attendance from all schools. Tomorrow the high school is having a pep rally at the end of the day where underclassmen and upperclassmen will both show their Tiger Pride and get ready for the homecoming game tomorrow night. Saturday morning is the PSAT for sophomores and juniors. Saturday night is the homecoming dance. And Sunday morning is the Littleton Scholarship Trust Drive. So it's a pretty busy weekend ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go into presentations. We have a PTA update from Timlin Rasius. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thanks for having me again. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Timlin Rasius. I'm the Littleton PTA president. It's my second year as president, but it's my, 12th year in PTA. So the Littleton PTA not only works with the school's administrations and teachers and staff to enhance our children's curriculum at every school, but the past couple of years we've been trying to form a more personal relationship between the parents and the schools. So we've had some community picnics, adult nights out, and more community-based events that don't involve fundraising. Each school has its own PTA reps, and every month the lead rep from that school meets with the executive board to let us know what's going on at their schools. The executive board is comprised of myself, a vice president, treasurer, secretary, and membership chairs. And we meet the second Monday of the month, except on holidays. So if anyone would like to come and get all of the information at one time, that's the meeting to come to. So a little info on the schools. So Shaker Lane actually did a new event this year, which was wonderful. If anyone's on Facebook and saw them, and I wish I was more put together to put some pictures together in a slideshow. But they did a welcome back sidewalk chalk event where the parents went to the school the night before school started and they painted like inspiring messages on the sidewalk. And so when the kids and the staff and teachers came back to school, they had all these great drawings and great inspiring things for their first day of school. And it was funny because my senior was like, why didn't we do that at the high school? I was like, well, I don't know. But something for maybe next year. Yep. Shaker Lane's also had their annual book fair, and they hosted the story time where teachers and Jen Wilson came and the kids had milk and cookies while they read to them. They're now in the middle of their Kid Stuff book fundraiser. And let's see, what else are they doing? They're looking into helping with leveled readers for each classroom. I guess the staff had said that they're interested in getting leveled readers and have started a fundraising drive directed at this. They are looking for the rest of the year to do a cleanup day this fall, because I guess the grounds need some sprucing up, so they're looking to see if parents will come out and have a community event to help spruce up Shaker Lane area. Winterfest is January 25th. That's their biggest event. And they are now working with the Russell Street PTA reps to maybe do a color run in the spring for the two schools to raise some money. Russell Street, these reps have decided to make a new approach this year. Their only fundraiser will be their annual appeal. So they sent a letter out to parents and said, we know you're sick of selling things, buying things, having to raise money. So if all of you sent us $10 a piece, we could raise the money that we usually raise on these and then do more community-based events for our self. So their goal was $10,000 because that's what they usually raise. So far this year, we're not that far in, they've raised over $6,000. And only 25% of the families have participated so far. So they're looking to hit their goal or go above it. All of their other events will be community-based get-togethers. Their bingo night is the 25th of this month, so it's going to be no charge anymore. They're not charging for bingo cards. They're not asking parents for donations. We're going to buy them ourselves, all the awards that the kids get when they get bingo. And they're looking into maybe doing a family picnic in June. They also, I believe they did this last year, but box tops. They worked with the student council and they're looking to do it again to get box tops collections up because they're used by a numerous, to buy a numerous amount of items by Mr. Bazidlo. Let's see, middle school. They're also going the route of only an annual appeal. They have a smaller goal of 4,000, and they have raised about 1,600 so far. They have already decided their big thing this year is they are working with the art club and buying supplies for it to paint positive murals on the bathroom stalls. There was a story on ABC last year of a woman who did this in North Carolina. She wrote things, she painted things on the bathroom stalls like, be the change you wish the world to see, be a pineapple, stand tall, wear a crown, and be sweet on the inside. You're amazing, you're brave, you're strong. So we're hoping just to generate that positivity in the kids at the middle school because it's a tough time usually for kids. And so we'll be helping work with them. They're also funding buses for field trips along with their normal Earth View, the archaeological dig, amongst a few of their things. The high school, they had their Catalyst SAT boot camp and 25 students attended. It was a good attendance this year. They are also working with the art department at the high school to get some of the kids' art up into the cafeteria. They are also working with the administration to organize a financial literacy program for the students, kind of like their professional day, the career fair that they do. They do it on a half day where they have people come in and talk about financial, how to start a bank account, how to save money, things like that. They're funding a field trip for Mrs. Harvey's history class, and their big night is trivia night, which we moved off campus last year, and they're actually going to combine it with the junior class auction this year so they get more attendance for the junior class, because that's always one that kind of falls to the wayside. But that's about it. Any questions for us?
Any comments? No.
No, thanks for having me, and
Thank you.
I'll see you back in May to let you know what we did accomplish.
That's everything that you do.
Thanks.
All right, Chromebook update. One-to-one program, high school.
Good evening. Hi everyone, I'm Julie Lord. I'm an instructional technology coordinator. I'm here tonight with Natalie Clodo. She's the systems technology coordinator, and Dr. Harrington. We're also very thankful to have Meredith Perry and Jen Fudo, two of our wonderful high school teachers who are here to share some of their insights on how the one-to-one program has impacted their classroom. So we're going to give you a quick update. So Littleton High School will be continuing the one-to-one program for incoming freshmen, sophomore, and juniors this year. This one-to-one initiative will allow easy access to technology and best prepare our students for the 21st century. The purpose of this program is to allow students to integrate technology into their day-to-day school experience by giving them access to a device throughout the day. So we're in the second year of our program. This was a planned 3-year rollout. The program offers students 2 options to participate. So we have a lease purchase option where students are issued a school managed device and they pay an annual technology fee. And then we also have BYOD option, which is bring your own device option, which students bring a personal device that is registered through the program. At this time, we have participating as freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, and all grades should be participating by next year. This is just a breakdown of how the students are choosing their device options between BYOD and lease purchase, basically by class. So as you can see, it's pretty much 50-50 as far as what they're choosing, which feels like we're making a good choice in offering both of the options. So we do offer certain things to support the program, and Natalie's actually going to tell you a little bit about that.
Hi, thanks, Julie. So I apologize for wearing white after Labor Day first. We had red, white, and blue day at the high school, so the rule has now passed, so I didn't want anyone judging me before I got started, so now I feel better about that. So for students and families, we have an LHS one-to-one program website. So any information that our students or our families have about the one-to-one program, the program agreement is up there, the parameters around the program. It's really been explanatory for families, and we've been able to direct people nice and easy up there. We have an informational night with the tech team every July. So if you're on the fence, I'm not quite sure where to go, if I should do BYOD or if I should do purchase lease, we have a one-to-one night. We sit, we field questions, and we've probably had about maybe 10 on each night for the past 2 years, so we'll continue to do that. We have an email, technology@littletonps.org, where students and families can ask questions. We also always invite the kids to come down to the new tech office, which is downstairs in the high school. We have a Chromebook charging station that's located in the library, always there, so if they come and it's not charged, they always have a place to charge it. We also have loaner carts in the library. If you forget it, there's always another option that you can use. So for staff, we do cross-district collaboration yearly with Harvard and Aaron Shirley, and the focus is on curriculum development in the one-to-one environment. We also have a professional development day scheduled, afternoon scheduled for December 5th. So we'll be working on more Google environment, Google Apps for Education, how to use the Chromebooks, how to use accessibility features. So we're always educating everyone on the whole picture of this. Survey highlights. John, did you want to take this one?
Yep, sure. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Based on so you said that there are about 10 families at the information light. How much email traffic do you guys get, and then how much foot traffic do you get down in the office with kids during the day asking for help or support?
We really haven't had that much of a need for students having difficulty with the device itself. On the rare occasion that there is any difficulty with a device, where we may have had 3 to 4 a year.
Okay.
Total.
And then how about the email address? Are you guys getting?
Yeah, and Julie and I have been fielding all of those emails, so.
What's nice too is it's a lot of students.
Yeah.
So I find that the kids are really advocating for whatever issue or question they have, which is nice. So they've kind of taken ownership of that.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. We definitely want to see that self-direction from the students, especially at the high school level. Some program highlights. There was a brief survey that Natalie and Julie and I put together with some input from others to ask simple questions. It wasn't a lengthy survey, only a few, maybe 6 or 7 questions. We had only 20 respondents, and perhaps it was due to the time we rolled it out, but it was limited, so it's a limited sample size, maybe about 55% of the faculty. Closed response questions and 1 open-ended questions in terms of design. Overall results corresponded, though, with anecdotal feedback we had received from parents and students and staff throughout the year. Even some of the things that might be not seen as so positive, staff had already shared it with us. We already kind of knew their feelings about it, but it validated what they'd been telling us in terms of their experience. Very positive views. I guess the big takeaway for tonight is the very positive views of the program overall. The program is strong, thriving, and growing. Anticipation of being full-fledged next school year. And it has had, we would say, a substantial and positive impact on the instructional experience for our students. The things I'd like to highlight this bullet that being enhanced access. This was one of the things we set out when we advocated for the funding of the program, and there was lots of debate over how to do that. But we really wanted to accomplish these goals that are sometimes referred to as 21st century goals, but they're just really sound educational goals. Enhanced access to technology, tools for researching, reading, writing, collaborating, creating, presenting. Students, if you walk around the high school each day, as I do, you would see all these things happening in classrooms with the utilization of the one-to-one program, whether it's students using their own devices, a Mac or Dell, doesn't really matter. They could use a Chromebook. It's all primarily through Google, through the Google Classroom, but they do have access to a wide variety of other tools by using their device. There was some concern that definitely surfaced with staff in regards to student responsibility. It's not so much a program issue, but some of our students are not as responsible as they should be, and we're cultivating that responsibility when it comes to bringing their device prepared and ready to go. So we're going to be definitely emphasizing that. As they get more accustomed to the routine, of overnight charging a device. We understand there'll be lapses, it happens to all of us. My cell phone is running a little bit low right now. I have to charge it after a long day. I didn't get a chance to plug it in. But if I certainly let it go this way, it would be ready for tomorrow. And so I think, one of the things we want to encourage with the students is to keep their Chromebook or their one-to-one device as charged as they would their phones. They don't usually let their phones lapse too much. But that happens too. We want them to be ready for class. So there was some feedback about that, and so we'll work on that. Some students, like I said, are still adjusting to the routine. There's a minimal impact on seniors. The seniors have been taken care of with in terms of Chromebook cards and access to our brand new Mac lab. We put new. It's not a new Mac lab, but the devices are new. We have new Macs in there. That was an upgrade. We're very appreciative of the school committee support for that. But there's plenty of devices for all the students in the school to use. There's additional carts available, I believe, in the library. And so the seniors have had that, but they do not participate in the one-to-one program. They can bring their own device, but it's not something we are necessarily mandating as we are with the other grades. So that's something that will lessen next year. I don't know if you want to go to the questions. Next slide. Okay. This is one of the questions. This is from a Google form. Do you feel that this program is successfully accomplishing this initiative? Overwhelmingly positive support from, this is a staff survey from the staff. Again, small sample size, so even the small percentage of teachers reporting that they don't think it's necessarily accomplishing its initiative, it's a very small number of teachers. Can we go to the next one? Do you feel the LHS program enhances your teaching or curriculum? This is a little bit larger on the no side. We believe that some of this might be the fact that teachers, and this is speculation, but they already were strong with their curriculum, and they just didn't necessarily need the tool to enhance their teaching. A lot of our teachers voiced that right from the get-go when we were rolling out this program. But if we go to the next slide, you'll see this is, I think, a pivotal one. We discussed this in our meeting the other day. You feel the LHS one-to-one program benefits student learning overwhelmingly. This is the impact on students, not so much on the teacher. It's benefiting student learning. How many of your students bring their one-to-one device to class? This is the part I wanted to acknowledge. If we were to say there's an area for growth for us, it's certainly in this area, encouraging or having the students be more responsible for their devices. It can be disruptive to the learning experience as teachers are trying to organize when they have 3 or 4 students in class, either missing a device, not fully charged, and they have a lesson that's based on it. So those students would then we do take care of those students, but the Chromebook might not be available in the classroom. They would have to maybe go to the library or down to the tech office, but generally the library to retrieve a device that they can use for the day, a loaner. We expect that to happen now and then to every one of us at some point where something just doesn't go. We left it in the other car, we left it on the kitchen table, we left it not charged, we thought it was charging, but it didn't charge overnight. Those things happen. We know who these students are. They're more often not repeat offenders. So we'll move on from that. We're working with them. All right, positive highlights and areas for growth. Do you want to close this out with this, or do you want to go? Okay. Oh, thank you. I want to also just give credit to Natalie and Julie for their stewardship of this. They've been absolutely amazing to work with, from the planning stage, the gestation, to the birth of this program. It's been, and now we're seeing it really flourish. So I want to thank you both for that. The positive highlights are certainly the tech directors and the tech team. It's not mentioned here, but they're worth due recognition for that. The new program, this is a quote from one of the teachers, the new program has allowed me to utilize Google Classroom more effectively. The teacher might have been using it on their own with presenting material, but now all the students have a device and can follow along. It's allowed for collaboration even outside, beyond the school day. And communication with teachers. The one-to-one program means my students always have access to the internet and can easily work in a group on a shared document, so it's enhanced teamwork. Chromebooks allow access to digital technology such as videos, online interactions. We know that, shared documents. That's certainly something that we're seeing. One of our core values as a school is teamwork, and we're seeing this really bring that to fruition. The Chromebook technology, or the one-to-one tech. Areas for growth, I've already mentioned, strengthening student responsibility, increasing awareness of instructional technology tools, so there's lots of professional development that's already been provided. There's an extensive presentation, really impressive for our small district. It was Dr. Janey provided a few weeks back about all the offerings in the district, and a lot of them are rooted in technology. So there's a lot of that already underway. A number of our staff from all the district buildings will be going to the MassQ conference, which is the Computer Using Educators Conference, and it's held every year in October. And Littleton, I think, is recognized each year as one of the strongest school districts in terms of participation and then follow-up too. So that we're sending our team from the high school, and all the other buildings are sending a team. Is it next week? Or is it next week, yeah, it's coming right up. October's flying by. And so we look to expand the program to all LHS grades next year, and we will survey parents and students for additional feedback, as well as the staff again at the end of this year. We feel like we bring an ethic of continuous improvement to most of our, to all of our innovations and initiatives at the high school. And so the survey provides formative feedback for us to improve the process and the rollout. So again, thank you for your support of the program, and I think that wraps up our presentation. That wraps up my part of the presentation as well as I think you. And we'll have Meredith Perry, who's with us tonight, with two of her.
I gotta be honest, in all my years at school committee meetings, I didn't know we were allowed to bring our toys. If I'd known that.
When I was involved.
We better watch out for a movement break. She is the wellness director and
I know, I
coordinator.
gotta get them home now, it's past their bedtime.
All right,
so
and we have Jen Feudo as well from special education here to present, and they're going to share their experiences as classroom teachers on how this has sort of transformed or improved their teaching. Thank you, Thank you, Jen.
Hi guys.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Thanks for being patient with me. The Chromebooks have actually changed my classroom like dramatically. I teach health. Health is constantly updating, changing, giving us new information. I had textbooks for a while, and shortly after we purchased the textbooks, they changed the food pyramid to the My Plate. So then the books became obsolete because everything was like, refer back to the food guide pyramid. And I was like, just kidding, don't pay attention to that. So for me, this is just unbelievable that they can have that access. And it's actually one of the skills that I teach. I focus on skill-based health. So I teach them how to access valid and reliable information. And in order for them to do that, they need to have that information. And by going to the library that we have at the media center that we have at school, it's not the same because the books that we have there are valid and reliable. So they need to see the difference between a not reliable source compared to a reliable source. So I have them do this whole project on, find different websites, answer this question, we did this whole thing, and they have to, analyze the websites, and it's obviously a very important skill for them to have, and I wouldn't be able to do it without the Chromebooks. And I do want to just say that the survey results were from last June, and I have found that this year, my students are bringing them every day. They know that in my classroom that I use Google Classroom. So we have a Do Now. They come in, they open it up, they log on to Google Classroom, they answer the Do Now, and the majority of the students have them. Rarely do I have a student say, I forgot my Chromebook completely. Towards the end of the day, I have students that say it's not charged or it's low on battery. I'm fortunate enough that I have outlets throughout my entire classroom, so I tell them, bring your charger. I don't mind if you charge it in my class, you can rearrange your seat and use the outlet, as you need. That's how I run my classroom. I can't speak for the other teachers, but it has helped me, it helps the students, and that's the routine that we have gotten into. So for this year specifically, because again, last year was the first year that every student had one. It took a little bit of adjusting, but this year we're really into a good groove. And so they have completely kind of turned around this, and to have those Chromebooks, it really is, for my curriculum in particular, it's such a huge help. How's that? Is that good?
So I also use the program almost every day in my classroom. I'm a special education teacher at the high school, and what I love about the program is the opportunities for student engagement. I teach a writing course for students who have language-based disabilities. And when we're planning for writing, oftentimes we'll do some brainstorming. And I have some students who really aren't comfortable getting up to the board to share their ideas. They might struggle with spelling or grammar or even finding the right word. But now that they each have a Chromebook, we can use an app that allows them to share their ideas. It almost looks like Post-it notes, and I can project that to the classroom. But for the student who is reluctant to participate, they now have the tools at their fingertips. They can spell check and grammar check before they post. So now they're active participants and they can participate with confidence. Another way that we use the program is each student creates an online writing portfolio, and that really opens up the opportunities for them to collaborate. They can share a document when they're working in groups or in pairs, and each student is able to contribute to that project. They can also use those writing portfolios to go back and self-assess their growth over time. So when we get to January, what they've written back in September is just a couple of clicks away, and they can look at drafts that they wrote in September and analyze how they grew from draft 1 to draft 3, but they can also look at a skill that they were learning and compare that to their writing now in January. So I found that really empowers a growth mindset with the students. I could give you lots of examples, but in the interest of time, I'll just give you one more. When we're reading in class, using Google Classroom gives me the opportunity to post that text in multiple formats. So if a student learns best by listening to the text, I can post an audio file. I can also post a PDF file, and students can use a Chrome extension to open that file and set their own preferences. They might decide that they want a tracking device, so they can set a highlighter to track the words as they read, or they can adjust the level of reading so the vocabulary is more accessible. They can also have it read to them, and they can set the voice that it reads in or the pace that it is read to them. So now I have an opportunity to share the text with each student in a way that works for them for their own individual learning style. So I really appreciate the program, and I definitely see the positive effects it's had on our students.
That's great.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for the teaching staff?
I just had a question about access. Do we have a way of knowing if all students have internet access at home, and do we have a way to help them if they don't?
So we do have the ability to be able to give all students a device. So if it's a financial issue, then we were able to waive with administration's approval any of the fees.
Okay.
What's nice about the Chromebook is you can work offline too. I am not aware that there's any, or at least has not been brought to the attention of anyone who's not able to complete classwork or homework due to lack of internet, whether they're getting the access at school, at other locations, or again, being able to kind of do, you can still use the device offline. So, so I'm feeling pretty confident that it's pretty equitable.
Great. Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Just mainly a comment. I really appreciate the way this whole program's been rolled out thoughtfully and integrated into the classrooms, as opposed to just dropped it and then we hope it works there, because it's I think it just extends the opportunities to integrate the different, as you experienced there, the different learning styles with the access to the information. But I think combined with a thoughtful rollout process here, I think it's really been effective in terms of moving it into the classrooms.
I appreciate the work the two of you are doing in terms of integrating in that, in the professional development aspect of it. That goes to the point you made about we're not just dropping it and then hoping that there are certain teachers that have an acumen for it are going to take advantage of it, and the other ones that maybe don't are just going to kind of ignore it. Clearly, we're supporting all the teachers and letting them, bringing them up the learning curve. And we talk about the students being able to take advantage of it, but it's obvious that without the teachers being able to take advantage of it, you know, the students will take care of themselves in terms of technology to a great degree. Obviously, some of them outstrip us by, you know, a degree of magnitude. But knowing that from a school committee perspective that we are being equitable, not just in terms of making it available to the students, but making sure that the staff is able to reap the benefits, I think is significant. And I appreciate these updates that we've got. They've been very informative. I'd like to keep going because it is still a young program. You talked about how the senior class, it will be the last class matriculating out of the building that hasn't been a part of this. So it'll be interesting to see when it's fully integrated in there. And I know we've talked about conceivably, you know, pushing it down towards 8th and 7th grade as well. That's something for us to consider as we move forward too. So.
I do teach some seniors too, and a lot of them bring their own devices.
Yeah,
So
well, that's right. It's not right. It's not like they're in right.
completely
You know, right.
just
Right.
to throw that out
And you
there.
guys talk about how they can go get a device
Right.
for
Yeah.
the class if they want them. So yeah, it's good. Any other questions or comments?
No, just, I love hearing the positive stories, so it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have an update on the most recent round of AP testing from last spring.
We're up again. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, girls.
Thank you. Tonight, we're giving our annual presentation about the AP, or Advanced Placement Results. Happy to report to the school committee tonight. Once again, we at Littleton High School with strong results, strong performance by our students. Credit to their teachers, the AP teachers. Dr. Jamian brought forward a couple of AP teachers last year from the last meeting. We had Julie Elmore and Laura Curd present about their experience in mathematics, and I think you'll see that in the results that will be presented tonight. It was a really insightful presentation when they came before you, and I think they addressed a lot of the background questions you may have after you look at the results at the last meeting. They did that in their presentation. Tonight is just a sort of summary of the results. Again, positive. I've done this presentation for a number of years now, and so I'm going to hand the reins over to Assistant Principal Keith Cabot with us tonight to present. I'm happy to chime in and answer questions as needed, but I'll let him take the reins. Thank you.
Do I have to adjust this, or
What's that?
do I have to raise this up, or is it
No.
good here?
No, I should be able to pick you up.
That base will pick it up very well.
All right, good evening. Again, this is a summary of the results from this past spring's AP testing. This first list is a list of courses that was offered last year at the high school. The last class there, the AP Music Theory, was a VHS course. That was one of our staffers was instructing. That's why it's included on this first list. But these 9 classes to begin the list are physical classes offered in our building last year. The second list is a list of exams that students from our school took last year. You will notice that there are exams on this list that our students took that were not offered as a physical course in our school. AP Latin, for example, we offer Latin 5 honors instead of an AP. That was a decision made by the teacher, but the kids are prepared to take the Latin AP exam and score very well on it. Another example of that is the AP Computer Science. That was mostly taken by kids through VHS last year, but they took the AP exam without taking the physical course in our building. This next set of information is the amount of kids last year who took an AP exam and the number of tests taken by our students. So last year we had 98 students take AP exams for a total of 182 tests taken. So that indicates that many of our students are taking multiple exams, enrolled in multiple AP courses throughout the year. And there's a comparison to the past 9 years or so that shows the amount of students and the amount of exams taken, and you can see a consistently high number of students taking exams and a high number of students taking multiple exams over the past years. This next graph here, or chart I guess, is a summary of the number of students and exams
completed at each AP score level, 5 being the highest score level, 1 being the lowest score level. So this past spring, we had 41 student exams at a 5, which is 23% of all of our exams taken. 71 at 4 for 39%, 47 at 3 for 26%, 17 at 2, and 6 tests were scored as a 1. And the bottom number there is 159 of our exams were at the level of 3 or above, which is the passing score for the AP test. It's 88% of all the student exams were 3 or better. And this is a comparison of this past year, 2018, to the previous 4 years at the AP score level of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, same kind of thing. And you see a very consistent level of achievement for our students over the past 5 years. Again, 88% of our students were 3 or better last year, same as in 2017. This graph is the exact same information, just in a visual for you. Over the past 5 years, 2018 being in yellow is indicating the number of exams that were categorized by each level, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, the results on this graph and the previous charts include students who took multiple exams. So this is all focused on the actual number of exams taken, not necessarily the students per se. Whereas this next set of information is based on the actual students. So we had 87 students last year who scored at least a 3 on 1 exam, which is 89% of all the students who took an exam scored a 3 or better on at least one of their exams. Again, compared to the previous 7 years before that as well. Again, you can see that consistently high scores, high percentage of scores 3 or better for our students. And this bar graph is, again, the same number as this previous chart, showing the number of students scoring well, 3 or above, compared to the state average and the global numbers. So you can see that our students have scored consistently above the average in the state and globally. So that speaks very favorably to the work done by our students and by our staff in the building. The AP Scholars Program, there's a series of levels of distinction that students can achieve based on their performance on the AP exams. The AP Scholar is granted to students who receive grades of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. We have a chart showing the numbers next. AP Scholar with honors is granted to students who receive an average grade of at least 3.25 on all of their exams taken and a grade of 3 or higher on 4 or more AP exams. Scholar with distinction has an average of at least 3.5 on all exams and grades of 3 or higher on 5 or more exams taken. And AP Scholar at the national level is who received an average score of at least a 4 on all of the AP exams that they took and score a 4 or higher on 8 or more AP exams. So those are just 4 levels of AP Scholar distinction that students can achieve. And this next information shows this past year compared to the past 7 years prior, of the number of students who were recognized as AP Scholars. We'll see we had 31 last year, 18 of whom were AP Scholars, 4 Scholars with honor, and 9 AP Scholars with distinction. And so again, you can compare those numbers very favorably to the previous 7 years, and again, a testament to the quality of work done by our students and by our AP teaching staff. And this last slide just shows a few special notes, highlights, if you will. This current year, we have 11 AP courses offered physically in the high school, which is up from last year. We had 10 last year. 89% of our students, again, scored at least a 3 or higher on one of their AP tests. A couple of individual course highlights. AP Art History is offered again this year. It had taken a 2 or 3 year hiatus. It's back at the high school this year. There are 14 students currently enrolled, including Creedy. And there's also 3 sophomores in the class, so we're opening kind of opportunities to a whole new group of students by having sophomores enrolled in the AP Art History course. AP French is being offered this year. It hadn't been offered in a couple of years, but Mrs. Allison has done a really nice job building the program back up, the French program, so AP French is offered again this year. AP Calculus AB this year has 2 sections. This is the first year that we've had 2 sections of AP Calc. It's because it's in such high demand. And so Mrs. Elmore is teaching both of those sections. We have 29 students in AP Calculus AP. A couple, I guess, future notes. AP Computer Science is a course that we're still very interested in being able to offer to our students going forward into the future. And currently we have students in our high school who have expressed interest in adding AP Economics. They're in the process of putting together a proposal to have that running next year. Outside of what's on the paper here, we also have 16 students who are taking AP courses currently through VHS. AP Chemistry, AP Economics, AP Music Theory, AP English Language, Computer Science, and AP Calculus BC, which is an advanced pass to the AP Calculus AB. So those 16 students outside of the ones that are currently enrolled physically in our building who are taking AP classes this year. Questions?
Comments, Jen?
Thank you.
I have one question. Can you go back up to the number of students taking AP exams, kind of near the front? So can we add a column next year to the right that shows the ratio dividing the number of exams taken by the number of students taking the exams? And I crunched it really quickly. In 2009 through 11, it was around 1.5. Then it got up to the 1.9 range. It went over 2.2 one year. It was 2.18. But the range is really more like 1.85 to 1.93. I just want to kind of keep an eye on that because we think about overloading students and stress levels and things like that. I mean, there's a reason why the AP exams are worthwhile.
Sure.
But when it becomes goal seeking and application and CV padding, we've had discussions about that in the past. So I think that'll help us keep an eye on that and just make sure that we're striking the right balance in, you know, offering this type of programming, but not losing sight of why they're really there, which is not to get AP credits for the sake of getting AP credits. You know what I mean?
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
And with, excuse me, dual enrollment courses as well, it's going to affect those ratios.
Yeah. Right.
Just a general comment. It was 5 years ago when we were looking at French, high school French, we were really struggling in terms of whether we were going to be able to keep the program. The enrollment was sliding, and that was a national trend. It wasn't just a trend in our community. But our French teacher that we brought into our high school has done a miraculous job of revitalizing that program to the point of being able to offer an AP French. So, and that's within a 4-year period that we've been able to do that. So she really deserves to be commended on her ability to rejuvenate a program.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see.
Yeah. She actually has 6 classes this year because there's such a high demand.
That's great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple of school improvement plan updates.
I have it in my file.
Oh, there it
It's
is.
in the packet.
Sorry. There it is.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to talk on behalf of Shaker Lane. Our school improvement accomplishments from last year, 2017-18. In the area of curriculum instruction and assessment, one of the pieces that we brought in last year was implementing the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system. This is a reading assessment system that encompasses fluency, comprehension, and it was something that was purchased prior to me coming to Shaker Lane, but we were charged with the implementation of the program. So we did that last year. We're using that as a three-term benchmark system in the fall, in the winter, and the spring. The second piece we have there is the level literacy intervention, which once we found out we had the BAS system, the Fountas and Pinnell, we needed an intervention system that matched the skills that we were evaluating 3 times a year. So we purchased the level literacy intervention system, which we do in a pull-out session for students who need to meet grade level expectations at those 3 times during the year. We began the implementation of Dreambox with some funding through Dr. Ajamian. We were able to purchase Dreambox accounts for students K-5, and we started that last year. We also adopted some curriculum exploration pieces from the FOSS science curriculum. We had some professional development on that last year and continuing to implement that program this year. Last year, the guidance counselor, Justine Matherin, myself, and our school psychologist, Laura Braun, we were exploring additional ways to complement our social emotional learning program, Second Step. And Laura, Mrs. Braun, and I are very familiar with the social thinking curriculum from Michelle Garcia Winner. So we worked on bringing that curriculum into Shaker Lane last year, and we did that with some small groups who needed additional support beyond the Second Step curriculum that we had in every classroom. So that was the beginning stages of that last year, and we're continuing in a different model this year. I'll give you that update later. We also explored with some guided math exploration. A group of teachers had come to me last summer and said that they wanted to try out guided math. I was certainly familiar with that type of instruction. We had some professional development with another school department, and that has kind of blossomed in the building. So we're working towards a continuing guided math this year as well. Last year we put together a student success team committee. So this is the process that we look at students who are not meeting certain behavioral or academic exemplars, and we put the committee together, and it was teachers, special ed teachers, reading teachers, myself, bless you, and our a couple of other staff members, and we looked at making sure that this form was a form that actually collected data, and we could look at some interventions that were appropriate for the students, and we could track that data. So we met several times last year. We have just completed the form and went over it with our new Director of Pupil Services, Justine Muir, and we're implementing that this year. Last year we also accomplished finalizing the standards-based report card. It's still in development at this point, but we will be rolling that out in December. So we did a lot of work last year in the area of curriculum instruction assessment. Some of this had started a couple of years prior. The standard-based report card, that piece that there was a committee that put that together a couple of years prior to me, and we just worked on some final touches last year. Next slide. Professional development. Again, we did and are continuing to have ongoing professional development for the Fountas and Pinot benchmark assessment system for the staff. We also had put together a zones of regulation, which is a focus of social emotional learning, where students are able to regulate their emotions but also match them to a feeling. So if they are ready to learn and their body feels ready to learn, they're in the green zone. If they're not ready to learn, they're a little agitated, aren't feeling well, they're in the yellow zone. There are two other zones, blue zone if they're feeling sad, if they're upset, not feeling well, and then the red zone just means out of control. So what we were trying to do at our level last year was provide professional development for staff so students can actually match a feeling with a picture, because at our age it's all about visuals and how I feel and matching it with the zones of regulation. So we provided PD for all our staff one day last year. I talked about this on the prior slide. We did visit another district to observe. And that blossomed. We had a Russell Street teacher reach out to us last year and asked to come over and watch us teach guided math. So I feel like we had some homegrown PD that started in another district, but is organically evolving in our district as well. We had several faculty-led sessions. I put a couple up there that were very popular. Responsive classroom. We know that Russell Street uses that model. We're continuing to look at that model in our building as well. Daily 5, which is a reading approach that focuses on 5 pieces of reading. See if I can remember them all. Read to self, read to someone, work on words, work on writing, and work with the teacher. So it's a center-based approach in the reading curriculum, in the literacy curriculum. And whole brain teaching was another favorite one from the teachers. Community and communication. Through our school advisory council last year, we put together a parent communication survey to kind of get a gist of what looks good on our website and what doesn't look good. What do you want to see? What is hard to find? Lunch menu is hard to find. It's the most important thing that parents are looking for, so now we have that information. We're working with some district administrators to make some of those changes. That parent communication survey gave us a lot of information about what parents like to see, what they want to see, what they want to find easily accessible. We also collaborated with Littleton High School with staff and students. Ms. Sawasik had another teacher from the high school come over who teaches Spanish, and her name is escaping me at the moment.
Steele.
Thank you, Mrs. Steele. And she came over, and her students had created books in Spanish, and read them to the kids. And it was a fantastic opportunity that we're actually continuing this year. We had several service learning projects last year. One of the ones we started off the year with was through the Red Cross. We had raised $830 for Hurricane Harvey and Irene. Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irene. We tie a lot of our service learning projects into what we can do to help the community, but also tied into our HEART program and how we can give back to our community. We partnered with Knox Hashing Real Estate to collect coats for kids, and we were able to collect 196 coats last year that we donated. So those are a couple of our service learning projects. We participated in the Global Read Aloud. We'll continue to do that this year. It's actually in play this month. We participated in Global Play Day in the spring. The Shaker Lane weekly newsletter will continue, our Twitter, and something new that Superintendent Clenchey brought in were press releases through Jordan Mablum. And he did a press release for us last year on our art show, and he just recently completed a press release on the garden project that we did with the 5th grade girls, Girl Scout group. Climate and culture. So every month we do, as you've heard here, we focus on HEART. We focus on being good model citizen, honesty, effort, acceptance, taking responsibility, and respect. We work on that every month. We focus on that. Our students fill heart jars in their classrooms, and once they fill their heart jar, they think of the team, the classroom comes up with a reward. Sometimes it's pajama day, a couple extra minutes of recess, a brain break, something that they can be rewarded for showing these great model pieces of being good citizens. Council on Aging partnerships. Our kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Barth, has really forged this relationship where she reaches out to the Council on Aging and they come in and they read with the students in kindergarten. They also put on a presentation at the end of the month with them as well. Last year, we put together a scheduling committee to look at our unified art schedule to really make sure it's more of a balanced approach with what is best for kids, kindergarten, first and second. And the scheduling committee had looked at, when should we have the specialists? What time would be best for kids? What is going on? What is the chunk of schedule? Do we have a lot of disconnect where there's an hour of instruction, a break, 20 minutes, an hour and a half? So we really tried to look at those things. It's an ongoing thing that we'll continue to look at as well. Every month we have team leader meetings from each grade level, pre-K 2 to 2, and we talk about what's going well in the building, what we need to improve. Principal Bazidlo and I last year put together the grade 2-3 teacher collaboration and move-up day where we had a whole day event where our second graders went up to Russell Street and visited with them. Prior to that, they had written letters back and forth, once from each school, talking about the grade 3, what it is like, answering questions, and then they were able to go up, participate there in lunch. They had an assembly, and then came back. So we felt that that was a good, and during that time, I should say that the grade, well, Principal Zidlow and I had the students, the teachers were able to collaborate with the sending teachers, the incoming teachers. So second grade teachers met with third grade teachers and went over just a snapshot of the students they would be getting. So we felt that that was another great transition for our kids. And then every month we try to have a little bit of fun at Shaker Lane. So, we work hard, but we also play hard. So every month we do have a staff outing. Last month we went to Kimball's. We went to go see Jerry Brooks, if anybody's familiar with him. He does a lot of comedy on education. We've done karaoke night. We've done the Westford Escape Room. So we try to do something once a month that's fun. Technology. Last year, Superintendent Clenchey found some funds for us to purchase the virtual reality goggles, which were fantastic. When we rolled them out at Shaker Lane, I had put on our staff meeting agenda, visit to Hawaii, so I knew that would get their attention. So Julie Lord came over and coordinated a visit through the VR goggles to Hawaii, so the teachers could be excited about the new piece of equipment, and it just took off from there. They really enjoy that, and they're using that constantly in the classrooms. We continued with our Tech Tuesdays, where our tech team, which is just below that, our building technology team developed a survey where they would work with, they would survey teachers on what they wanted to learn about, and we would have a Tuesday once a month, once every other month, where they would have PD based on their choice. And the Hour of Code, our students continue with And that's actually something for our students where they are learning how to code and they get a certificate saying that they've completed their hour of code. And then digital citizenship program. We continue to teach our children, even at the K-2 level, what it means to be a good digital citizen. Any questions? We had a busy year last year.
Sure. The Dreambox, that's a math program?
So that is a computer adaptive program. So what happens is you can either, if you know the level of your student, you can put that level in. So if I have a second grader and I know that they're working at a third grade level, I could start them at a third grade level, or I could just have them go on and the program will adapt to their ability level. And if they need more practice at their level, it will keep them at their level. And we're using that in the guided math approach as a station rotation model. So they will work with their teacher, they'll maybe work on some other game activity, or they'll have 15 to 20 minutes on Dreambox. And there's a lot of data this year. So we started it last year, but this year we are really working in the professional development piece. We had an hour webinar, hour and a half last month, and we have an hour and a half coming up in December, where we can actually look at the data, which can help us drive our instruction. So if we see that kids are falling down in number sense, we can pull the data from Dreambox and then put some short-term groups together.
So maybe this is back. So traditionally we've been using what, everyday math for
yes.
K through 6, and then a couple years ago we switched to K through 5, and then we switched to a different program at the middle school there. So is this signaling that we might be moving away from everyday math, or is that that's what I mean in terms of a supplement or
that's an excellent question, since that's part of what we're doing this year. We've actually met with our staff, K-5 staff, a couple of times, and we're reviewing everyday math with our staff. There are certain components of that program that could do a better job of covering the math standards. And there's no one program that will do everything, so we're making sure our teachers have those resources to feel comfortable and competent teaching those standards. But the bigger question is, at this point in time, will everyday math continue to do what we want it to do? And then we have a conversation about program fidelity. We want to make sure that before we entertain any changes in everyday math, we have the program fidelity that indicates that we've done everything we can to make this program work. So this year will be a year of review, and I can't emphasize enough that you will never find a program that meets all of the standards, and it's just a matter of you want a program that can meet most of them, and then have auxiliary or supplemental materials that will take care of the rest. Dreambox is an incredible program that has many districts has been implemented in, has transformed math achievement throughout time. And the adaptive assessment is so powerful for kids and also for teachers in terms of a diagnostic sense. It really allows them to tease out where their students are, their strengths, their challenges, and then tackle them on an individualized basis.
Yeah, no, just a few years ago when we were doing one of the updates, I looked at it, and I think for every, at least a dozen different math programs, and every one had pros and cons on polar opposite reviews of how effective they thought or complete the programs were. There's no non-controversial math program.
And if I could just add, so Dreambox would also not be a program, as Dr. Clenchey mentioned. This is more of a supplemental piece to really personalize. When we think about personalized learning for kids, it's matching kids where they are at. So if we have a second grader who isn't falling down in place value, then this program will adapt to them and will give them a number of questions until the computer finds them successful with that. So it kind of pockets and hits those areas that the kids are falling down on.
Yeah, no, I think those adaptive techniques are really powerful there. It's just, I just was wondering if we were thinking about changing the program, that's all. Thank you.
If I could just add one thing.
Calling them.
Mrs. Kane was instrumental in bringing this program to the district, as well as Susan Mitchell, the math specialist at Russell Street. And initially, the district implemented it for Title I students as part of the academic support. And then Mrs. Kane and Mr. Bazidlo advocated to extend this to be a learning opportunity for all students. What the research has shown, Dr. Clinchy said that math programs don't do everything, but what the research on this math program has shown is that it does close achievement gaps very quickly and very effectively through that powerful individual computer-based instruction. So we're indebted to Dr. Clinchy and Steve Mark in terms of budget forecasts, and so the money at the district level was utilized to support the instructional program that they recommended.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment. When you look at everything that, it's just not Shaker Lane, we're talking about Shaker Lane School now, but when you consider a teacher's day at Shaker Lane or Russell Street School, teachers are with their students most of the day. We have 4 40-minute prep periods a week. And you look at all the initiatives that this school and staff has been involved in. It's phenomenal in terms of what they fit into their school year. We do regroup and have grade level meetings and make it work. But every one of these initiatives takes a tremendous amount of time. And I just want to recognize our staff and our administration for being able to put this together and be successful at moving forward in so many diverse areas that link directly to our strategic plan. So thank you, and please thank your staff on our behalf as well.
They do all the hard work.
Michelle, just one question.
Yes, we did.
I'm sitting here on this one.
You said that the standard-based report card had been in the works for a while, but
Yes.
you're just implementing the BAS now. So are those going to be reflected in the standards-based report card?
So the scores will definitely be discussed with the parents, but we don't actually have that as a standard on the report card.
Okay. But the BAS has different
Components to it. Yep, it
components.
has comprehension, fluency. Margie, what am I leaving?
The Spinell has
accuracy.
Accuracy, comprehension, fluency, and those are the 3 main ones. And you can get rate on there. Depending, by second grade, by mid-second grade, there's a rate. But prior to level H, there's no rate.
So to answer your question, are components of that going to be on the standards-based report card? Yes, but the actual score of the child, whether they're a B or a C, that won't be on it. But those pieces about accuracy, comprehension, yes, those will be on the standards-based report card. And I'm following you now, Erica.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having me tonight to talk a little bit about Russell Street School. It's always nice to talk about the work that the team has done. You'll see a lot of overlap between Principal Kane's presentation and ours. We are working very hard to tighten the alignment K-5 between the 2 buildings. And you'll also see some overlap from my presentation last spring. Some of these things are highlights from last year and had started later in the year, so you'll see some of that as well. As we think about curriculum instruction and assessment, K-5 vertical alignment is one of the items that's in our new school improvement plan, and we started working on it last year with grades 2 and 3 and are continuing this year. Our teachers are excited about that opportunity, and I think we're going to see great results for our students through the collaborative work of teachers. We had an early release day, K-5 recently, where all classroom teachers participated in one of 6 vertical alignment teams, and they'll have another early release day to work on that in January. Michelle talked about guided math. We have started guided math at Russell Street as well. Everyone is headed in that direction, and after the full day PD in November, we look to have everyone completely integrated into a guided math block supported by Dreambox. I'll jump down. We talked about Dreambox, and I would concur with Michelle that Dreambox has been a tremendous addition to the Russell Street program, both with Title I and then based on the feedback that we got from our Title I staff. Our teachers and students are very excited about Dreambox. As I walk around the building when there's students using Dreambox and I ask them what they're doing, there's always a big smile. So they're learning, but they're also excited about the program. Jumping ahead a little bit to grades 3 to 8, we started with training last spring at Russell Street School in the ANSWER protocol. That's a Keys to Literacy protocol for extended writing tasks for students, comparing multiple pieces of literature and being able to respond in writing. We have continued that work this year with some professional development time to work vertically 3 to 5 to make sure that we understand the expectations at each grade, to have some anchor charts and material resources for classrooms. That team actually just met yesterday, and they'll be working at next week's early release day to continue on ANSWER and to continue on our new intervention block. The next one is our redesigned intervention block. I've been here previously and spoken about RTI, which is was our reading intervention block, and WIN, which stands for What I Need, which was our math intervention block. Based on the feedback of teachers and our Title I staff, we've changed our model from 2 30-minute intervention blocks to 1 45-minute intervention block to have some more quality time. We were losing time in transition. We took a look at how many students were getting Tier 2 intervention in each subject, and there are about 15 of those students that need both. And so if there's Tier 2 students that need intervention in both, our interventionists are working with parents to decide either we're going to do the ELA first and then the math, or we're going to split, or they might do 3 days of one and 1 day of the other based on the student needs. As we move forward, our Tier 1 program, which is basically students who are meeting grade level expectations in both reading and math, will participate in another Tier 1 intervention. So it might be a more advanced math opportunity in that block. It might be a more advanced ELA opportunity. It might be support in an area in math or ELA that they need. They're not Title I students, but they could still use some support. And then we expect the other 2, there'll probably be 6 at each grade. 1 probably to be around social emotional learning, and 1 to be around writing. So we're excited about that. We've had good teacher feedback, good student feedback. Our interventionists are pleased. We're just starting. We're only a couple months in, so we'll have more to report, but we're excited about that. And we'll be working this year with the technology team. I'm actually meeting with Natalie next week to work towards getting our standards-based report card available to parents in the portal. So we won't be printing and handing them to students anymore. Parents will have access to them in the Aspen portal. Professional development continues over the past couple of years. You'll notice the academic piece right here is the vertical alignment 3 to 5. We also had that ANSWER protocol PD that I mentioned. And then you'll see a whole bunch of PD around social emotional learning and sort of mental health of students and how to support kids to be successful in school and to feel good about themselves, to feel good about school. We continue to talk about the CASEL competencies in social emotional learning and how we are currently implementing and teaching students about those things and how we can expand. We're taking a look at Second Step, which is currently in use at Shaker Lane, and to see whether that makes sense to be a K to 5 continuum for a little bit more of an explicit curriculum on top of our responsive classroom approach. So we've had a big focus on, while we stay focused on academics, we've had a big focus on social emotional learning and mental health. Community communication. We're heading into our 3rd year of a program called Russell Street School Engaging Families 101. We have a team of folks at Russell Street who have made this their professional practice goal. They offer 1 to 2 parent workshops per year. Some of the ones we've done, there's one we will have one this year called Engaging Readers and Mathematicians, I think. We did one last year on technology and cell phones and how to help parents know what their children have access to. We did one on social emotional learning. So those have been well received. We generally, in the past, have done them during the day and made the materials available. We'll try one at night this year to see what that does for our attendance. We continue to do social action projects at each grade level. That's been happening for the past 5 or 6 years. Students really enjoy that. 3rd grade tends to work with the senior center. As I walked through classrooms today, there were students making cards and placemats for Halloween to help decorate the senior center in one of the classrooms I walked through, and they were having a great time. As Michelle said, we participated in Global Read Aloud and Global School Play Day for the last 2 years. We have partnered closely with Shaker Lane with vertical alignment, and we'll continue to do that. We've had a close partnership with LCTV. You can see some of our ongoing spirit events and communication efforts there, as well as the press releases that the district has taken on, as Michelle also mentioned, which have been successful. We have one coming out, if it didn't come out just recently, from the Rotary Club giving dictionaries again to our 3rd grade students, and we had one based on our outdoor classroom. Climate and culture, we continue to focus on social emotional learning of students and adults. We have a sort of unofficial theme at Russell Street this year that is relentless positivity. So we're looking for the best in each other and students and families and the work that we do, and trying to really build ourselves up. It is a tough job, Michelle alluded to that, and try to be supportive of each other and find the best in each moment and figure out how we can learn and continue to grow ourselves. Our outdoor classroom has been a huge success. Children really enjoy it. Our school-wide meeting program continues to be strong. Clubs, clubs start Monday. We had overwhelming demand again for clubs. Mrs. Patterson offered a cooking club that we didn't know how it would go over, and 140 students signed up for about 32 spots. So there were some disappointed kids that got into their
started weeping with joy.
Right, their 2nd or 3rd choice club. So it is a little difficult. We break clubs into 2 or 3 different sessions. We do ensure every child gets a club experience. But it is a challenge for the office staff this time of year to get that straightened out. So I appreciate that, all the work that they've done on that. This year we're starting a new initiative called Russell Street Shoutouts. We'll be doing shoutouts for students and staff at school-wide meetings and at staff meetings and those types of things. We're also piloting a new RSS musical moment on Fridays. So we're doing a musical clip at some point during the day on Fridays, and we've started initially, I have a list of teachers' favorite songs, and so we've picked the appropriate ones to be able to share with the RSS musical moment. Is brought to you by, Ms. Schofel today, and students get a movement break, and then if that all goes well, we'll start soliciting some songs from kids. So we're trying to keep the learning fun, stay focused on keep ourselves balanced. We really want to, like Michelle said, we really want to work hard, excuse me, but we don't want our staff and students to be stressed out. So we're trying to keep school fun. We also did, I felt badly I didn't mention it with the student announcements. We also did our Alice safety drills this past week on Tuesday. It went well. LPD and LFD were there. And I did a little micro survey of staff about how they felt like it went and how they felt like students handled it emotionally, and the feedback there is overwhelmingly strong. We continue to use Twitter regularly. Our 5th graders are excited about that capstone trip to Cedardale. When it comes to technology, this year we we filled a K-5 STEM integration specialist position, and while it's a monumental loss for us in 4th grade that Mrs. McGregor is not there anymore, she has transitioned into this job amazingly well, and is beaming every time we see her, and has brought tons of new exciting things to both schools, not only for students but also for staff. Staff feel very supported, and so it's really going well. It's a great fit for her. Still very proud of our think tank blog. That's students being taught to blog on their own without faces, the projects that they're doing in the think tank. And if you've heard this presentation before, I've talked about it. We also got some positive press release recently. Russell Street, Littleton, and the think tank were recognized in the Boston Globe for school districts with innovative programs with reasonable housing costs. And so that was some great PR. We've been a leader in the makerspace movement, for several years. Lots of people come to see the think tank to talk to Julie and Heidi and to think about what they want to do at their own schools. So we're very, very proud of that. We also brought in virtual reality, Lego WeDo's, I think at the beginning of last year. You'll see all the types of technology there that we use to enhance student learning. And we'll complete our transition this week. We moved 4th grade. We started with 4th grade. We moved 5th grade last year to Next Generation MCAS on a technology format, and this year we'll transition to 3rd grade. So at the end of this spring, if all goes well, we expect all students at Russell Street to be participating in the MCAS on computers. I know that was fast. I'm happy to answer questions.
Erica, any questions, comments?
Just a comment. You mentioned the Alice training.
Yes.
Just a little feedback. So there was a little bit of discussion online about some concerns with Shaker Lane parents about how it was going to go and what was going to be said. but a lot of those concerns were quelled by Russell Street parents
Oh,
who
good.
said they did a fantastic job, and their kids came home and said, you know, they weren't scared and they felt confident in what they learned, and so.
I appreciate that feedback, thank you.
That's great.
Daryl?
Oh, thank you very much.
That's always my measure, when Mr. Baker doesn't have a question.
Thank you. Same comment that I made before to Shaker Lane. Russell Street's schedule is very similar, and look at all the initiatives they've been involved with very limited time to work on them during the day. So kudos to staff and administration for moving forward in all aspects of our strategic plan.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, a comparison of school fees.
So there is a schedule in your packet. Boy, I apologize. I feel like my stuff's kind of dry after being all these PowerPoint presentations. But this is kind of the best format to present it. So I tried to present Littleton on the left of the worksheet and some of the other districts surrounding us on the right side. Some of the information was hard to get in some of the categories, so I did the best I could based off of the feedback I received back from some of the other districts and their websites and other information sources. I'll answer questions. I won't try to draw comparisons here. The information is there for you to read and look at. In some cases, it's not an apples to apples comparison between what Littleton charges for fees and what some of these other districts charge. So I tried to also put that information in there with a little explanation as well. You know, some districts charge $235 for the students to participate in band. We don't. We have student activity fees. So it kind of runs the whole gamut of some districts charge for tuition, some charge for transportation, some don't. Most of the districts that don't charge for transportation are the regional districts. Again, a reminder, those regional districts receive funding back from the state because they're a regional district. Municipalities don't. They stopped that program about 18 years ago when districts were receiving transportation funding back from the state. So again, the information's there. I can answer questions. I'm trying not to draw conclusions or make conclusions because this is kind of, it's factual based, or I tried to make a factual based comparison between different districts. So I'll be glad to answer questions or find additional information if you need it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so if there's no information, does that mean there's no fee, or does that mean they don't have a comparable program?
No, that means I didn't find in this case for Tewksbury, I couldn't find information about what they charge for the kindergarten program.
Okay.
I didn't receive phone calls back, and the information wasn't on their website.
Okay.
So I just didn't have that information to put on here.
Okay.
And I did try to separate for Littleton, obviously for the kindergarten, what we're charged last year compared to what we're charged this year. We did have a tuition reduction in the kindergarten rate this year, and that's reflective here. Yeah. Questions? Want me to find additional information, come back later? Want me to put in a PowerPoint presentation next time?
No, I mean, I just find this handy for us to just sort of have an annual snapshot of what we're charging, because we see them piecemeal presentations there, and this is just one way of getting it all at one time to sort of see. I don't see anything that jumps out that our district is out of line with any of our surrounding communities either.
And I think an important comment to make is the fees have not been increased for a long, long time. Like, you probably have a number.
Not since we've implemented them.
Right.
We added the hockey surcharge because of the cost of ice time, which had changed. We used to get a steep discount. We no longer get that discount, and we felt that had to be addressed. That was just a change in circumstance. But the other fees, once they've been implemented, they have not changed. I agree with Daryl. You know, I think everything I see here is, and I appreciate your point, Steve, about it's not always apples to apples, but as you look at this, you can see that we're in line with what everybody else is doing. I mean, it's unfortunate that there are athletic fees and bus fees, but you can see that the vast majority of districts are charging something. We're in line with that. As Superintendent Clenchey pointed out, we haven't raised the fees since we felt the need to put them in place. We have caps, family caps on the athletic fees and the transportation fees. I think that's important. Any fee that we charge, any student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch qualifies for reduction or elimination of fees for athletics or transportation or anything else. That's implied in here.
And I'm sorry, it's important to note that we have to remember these program costs go up every year. So the cost of stipends for coaches goes up every year. The cost of referees goes up every year. The cost of busing goes up every year. So, and school committee is managing to hold these fees steady over, I mean, I've been here 12 years, and I think most of these have been in place for the 12 years. So commendable, I think, for school committee.
And I guess another point, Steve, those increased costs are really not recognized in the budget process. And we've managed to keep them stabilized for many, many years.
Any other comments?
Well, I'm just, so while we're not out of line at all, we do seem to be on the lower end of things, and listening to how we haven't changed them in years, I'm just wondering, is it time to look at them again? Is that money that we could be using elsewhere?
Right, so it's a perfectly legitimate question. We have talked about it in very general terms as we've gone through our budget process, especially in the tight years. And the general consensus has been that the problem is that if we raise the fees, it has a very minor impact. Typically, like if we change the athletic fee from $200 to $250, which would be a 20% increase, it's not going to really make a dramatic impact on the bottom line of the overall budget. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. But that's been in the past. That's why the consensus has been no, we're not going to bother, because we don't think it's really going to address the budget issue at the moment, and then we've managed to close the gap without having to raise the fees. So that's, if we wanted to have that discussion again, I fully anticipate at some point we will. That's just the historical context of it. But I agree with you, in terms of we have not raised them, and when we think about when we put them in place, they were subsidizing the overall cost of each of the programs by some degree, and it's certainly to a much lesser degree than it is now. If we wanted to think about, do we want to get back to that same level of subsidization, then the way to do it would be to raise the fees, because as Dr. Clench just told us, the costs aren't going to go down. The costs of programs are not going to, unless we decided to offer less programming. But as Mr. Pizzidlo said, the club thing, was overwhelmingly popular, as our athletic program and our, the other stuff that we provide,
No, I don't think offering less is the solution.
And I think we have to be cautious of raising fees, because we have unintended consequences of those. Once we started implementing a bus fee, the desire to drive students to school or them drive themselves to school went up, because of people not wanting to pay the fees.
Right.
Type of thing there. Would we experience
That's a good point.
reduction in participation in the sports program as the costs go up?
It's not a straight line.
Was there a decrease in the participation when the fees were originally?
Well, with busing, for sure.
I meant the sports fees.
No, I don't think so. So I think busing was one where people are willing to live without it, whereas athletics and other, arts programs and things are probably not as likely to live without it. So that Keynesian curve effect is probably less pronounced on those things. But on the other hand, I don't feel like we should necessarily be exploiting, that's a bad word, but you know,
No, I
we
don't-
shouldn't, right, you know.
I don't either, and
Right.
I pay sports fees, trust me, I don't, I don't really want to be paying.
Everybody does.
But as you said, if we're
Right.
now, the sports fee is less of a percentage
Yeah,
of
for
the
sure.
actual
Right.
cost,
Right.
then is it accomplishing what we want it to
Right.
accomplish?
I think our philosophy for many, many years has been to minimize the cost. If we had our way, we wouldn't be charging fees anymore. So we've tried to mitigate it as much as possible. There are also other factors that are involved that when we look at collection of monies, if we raise fees, is that going to have a direct effect on all the fundraising that's done in the community? Our community members face increased taxation levels every year, as it is. And there are more and more organizations in our community that are looking for funds via fundraising. So it's trying to balance everything. And I guess the last comment I have to make is our free and reduced rates are going up, which means more students are receiving opportunities for these programs at a reduced rate or free of charge.
But that raises an interesting
But
point
that wouldn't
because,
change, right?
right, we heard from the PTA update that they're going away from fundraising as we traditionally recognize it because of the sense that there's some community exhaustion with, you know, going through those efforts year after year after year. And maybe, you know, if we worked with those groups to say, well, gee, if you guys are struggling, maybe, you know, then the idea is that instead of being reliant on that fundraising, whether it's the athletic boosters or whatever it is we can say, okay, you can relax to a degree and we can, you know, think about, some parents might say, oh, I would actually appreciate it if you told me that you're going to bump up my athletic fee by $50 and the Booster Association was going to leave me alone, I might do it.
That's what I mean, it's a whole macro.
Right, exactly.
of
It gets-
things that are involved
right.
there.
But it's
And
worth
then
having
likewise-
those discussions and at least modeling things and understanding if we ultimately decide not to and we know why we're not doing it, you know.
And I want to be also careful that we don't pit groups against each other, right? You know, we could take the argument is we don't really need to continue reducing kindergarten fees because it's more competitive than any of the other towns. Now, that would free up money for other choices. Is that the discussion that we want to get into? And I'm a little leery of that.
You're speaking entirely hypothetically when you talk about
Yes.
holding to two.
No, but I just use that as an example.
Mostly entirely hypothetically.
Where do you,
Well, where do you start drawing the line?
Yeah,
You know, do all the sports parents show up and say, no, this is very important to our community?
Right.
Just as the kindergarten parents showed up and said that this was very important to their community.
Right.
And we all know once we start an initiative, it's so important that we finish it.
Right.
We always have more wants than we can deliver. And it's up to us as an administrative team and the school committee to figure out what those top priorities are. And if we dive in, we need to finish what we started.
Right.
Or you just become
No, I was just using that as an example of, you know, how the discussion would go and how, like you say, it's intertwined. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, you know, if we double the fee, we're going to be twice as wealthy. It's like, no, we're not going to be.
But I do want to say is you know, we probably got to be careful and watch what's going, you know, happens with like our field trips, you know, in terms of cost stabilization, because those are all fully self-funded programs there. And, you know, and I think the DC trip has remained relatively stable in price from the different vendors. But again, I think it's starting to creep up a little bit too. So we've got to watch all of the other auxiliary services that were
those major trips that cost money. You know, it's our administrators and the people that volunteered to be in charge of the programs are under much more pressure in this day and age. And, Principal Temple and I have had many discussions in the past couple of years in terms of how much more pressure is put on the fundraising process to make sure that all students who want to go can go.
Yeah, because there's the Disney band trip. There's I think a couple of the language programs did overseas trips, you know, separately than that. That, you know, again, those could be tremendous financial pressures on people to participate in those, which are not necessarily part of our budget process, but I think we need to be cognizant of.
Right. the whole package of programs that the
and the impact on the
district
families.
is offering.
All right, good. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to new business, we have a presentation from Chief Pinard, who came in from stage right, somewhere back there. We're in his house.
Welcome. Thanks for having us. No, huh? First of all, thank you guys for giving me a few minutes to talk tonight in regards to kind of a hot button going around town right now. I want to start off by saying that this isn't just being pushed forward because of a parent group, and I want everybody to understand where I'm coming from with that. This program started back when I first got hired. So when I was here at Littleton, I was on the road for about a year as a patrolman. John Kelly and Glenn McKeel at the time were able to get a grant. It was a 5-year grant. The grant was a dwindling grant, where it started out with the DOJ actually paid the full first year of the grant. The next year, it came down, they paid 75%, 50%, 25%, and then the town had to suck it up for 2 years. So that's how that grant worked, and that's how the position started. I was lucky enough to be that school resource officer when it started, and I was in the position for 10 years. So yes, I'm very passionate about this position. And I think it's one of the best things that Littleton PD has done since my tenure here. But for the last couple of years, I've been pushing retired Chief King to try to go for a second school resource officer. And the reason I have been trying to do that is I saw the need, or the lack thereof, in the lower grades, the Shaker Lane School, the Russell Street Elementary School, the bond that the SRO brings to those kids of that age and that stature. And I see a resource there with the school resource officer that is not being fulfilled. So obviously when I took over as chief, I was approached by a group in town that were very interested in seeing this go forward. And I was on board with it. I brought them in immediately. I opened my arms, welcomed them up, and said, "Listen, tell me your thoughts on it." And they came in, and they wanted to have an armed guard in the school. And I quickly educated them as to that's not what the school resource officer is about. Yes, the school resource officer does have 3 hats that they wear. The first hat being a police officer, where they are carrying a gun within the schools. The second one is an actual liaison for a teacher, being a co-teacher with a lot of the teachers, teaching different programs that the teachers can have some assistance with. For instance, when I was in the school, I was teaching a law class in the high school. We brought it down, we taught a drug awareness class in the middle school. We now have, going forward this year, that we are already going forward with, is Officer Wazinski was certified to teach the alert program within the middle school. And we are going to go forward with that alert program. Very similar to that of the old DARE program, but it's actually more interactive with the students and gives them more of a counseling one-on-one after the class is over, gives them that person to talk to. And the third portion of that is a counselor. It opens up the school body to be able to have a different outlet to go see somebody, to talk to somebody. And when I say a different outlet, it's not their teacher they see every day. It's not their counselor, guidance counselor. It's not the nurse. It's not the principal. It's not the vice principal. It's someone that's separate from the school, but they're there a lot during the day. So it's a three hats that they actually wear. Basically, a counselor, an educator, and a cop, all in one. So I put this group at ease, and I explained to them why I wanted this to go forward and why I saw the need for it. And excuse me, as everybody here is aware, it is a big push through the DOJ to have more officers in the schools for these different programs. I see it more as forging a bond with the students at a younger age and being able to be that person all the way up through the school years as Officer John, Officer Matt, Officer Megan, being able to know that they have somebody to go to. You know, I could tell you that the statistics are 1 in 1,000, 1 officer per 1,000. Those statistics are mostly out of the southern schools with huge districts, but they're all one campus. I think our population is somewhere around 1,600 over the last 3 to 5 years. So having a second school resource officer isn't too far off. And we have 4 campuses. But not only do we have 4 campuses, we also have students that go to Neshoba Valley Technical High School, where, I mean, just last night, we had a runaway at midnight. He lives here in town, but he goes to Neshoba Valley Technical High School. So the school resource officer, who is our liaison, was the one that had to work on that most of the day today and was taken out of the district working on that. He was our liaison to Neshoba Valley Tech with their school resource officer today. You know, luckily by noontime, we were able to locate him, and he's back home safe and sound and getting the help that he needs. How do I say this? That SRO is there to bridge that gap between the student body, the faculty, and the police department, along with bringing it all into the community. I came forward with this. It was a proposal in my budget for 2020, and I wanted to pitch it to the selectmen early, which I did, and I was asked to pitch it to the finance committee, which I did, and now I was asked to pitch it to the school committee, which I'm doing. At the selectmen's meeting, it was brought up that if I felt the need for it to happen and start immediately, what would I think? And I'm not going to say no, absolutely not. If there's a way for us to put the second school resource officer into the school right away, then yes, I'm all for it. I will find another officer to replace the officer that I'm going to put into the schools. We've only had one since 2004 when the program started. You know, and it comes down to the end of it. Basically, how I would implement it is the school resource officer we have right now, Detective Janakis, he'd be based out of the high school. Detective Janakis would take care of the high school, obviously the traffic out front until we get a light there. Hopefully it passes with our vote. And then the second school resource officer will be stationed at the middle school. With the second school resource officer being at the middle school, she would take care of the middle school. She would also take care of the elementary school. And the two of them combined would actually be sharing time at Shaker Lane School, coming up and implementing new programs. And again, it's basic programs that you start there. It's reading to the kids on a regular basis. It's being in there during their lunch period, sitting down, so they get to see you. They get to break that barrier down of a police officer and humanize them to who they are. So the big question is, well, what's it going to cost us? Because let's face facts, everything comes down to dollars and cents, and what makes more sense for the community. So, in my budget, I'm going to be asking in 2020 about $80,000 to fulfill this position out of our budget, police department. If we started this program January 1 this year, we could probably get away with like $40,000 to $44,000 to fund this position. I think it's possible for us to be able to find in my budget $22,000 in order to fund this position. I would ask the school committee this time to look into their budget to see if they could help me support this position. And we talked about it a little bit, and there's no way to really come to you guys and ask unless we come to an actual meeting for you guys to talk about it. And I just hope that this opens the doorway for you to at least consider it and give me your points, your questions, anything that you want to make to me at this point in time.
All right. We've been invited to ask questions or comments. Chief Bernard?
Yeah.
You want to take advantage of it? Jen?
Yeah, so just because you're talking about the cost, are you saying that if we wanted to implement it in January, through the end of the school year, you're asking for the $22,000, then what happens in September 2019?
So it's a great question, Jen.
Or what are you planning?
What's your My plan is for you guys to tell me, then, you know something, we do actually see the benefits of this. We think it's going to be great. And if you guys say that you're willing to come forward with the money and try to find it, then I'm actually going to go to the selectmen at that point in time and say, this is what I have for funding so far this year. My 2020 budget is this. I need to backfill that position. I want this position to succeed. I don't want this to be a 3 or 4 month position and then it fails and then July 1 I'm laying somebody off. So it's all hinging upon different moving parts at this point.
Anybody else want to inform their thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm familiar with the program. It's not the first time we've seen discussion on the SRO there. I would probably like to get a little bit more clarity about what kinds of programs, there's the presence, there's the being there, there's the talking, but, it's a little light right now, I think, in terms of the sort of the academic support side of
absolutely.
The role.
Yeah, so first of all, what I've done is, right out of the gate is, John Janakis has been certified already as an SRO, which is the first step in getting someone in the schools. I've gone already forward in hope of this day coming, and Officer Wazinski has been and certified to teach alert, which is going to be happening in the middle school at this point in time. She's also been researching and has some, I hate to say DARE, but similar classes to DARE. Similar classes to protect, for kids to learn how to protect themselves. It's a lot of the FaceTime that's down in the younger schools as to stranger danger, Eddie Eagle programs. Those are the ones that we're looking forward to pushing on those littler kids. When I say push, that's kind of bad, educating the younger kids. But again, it is more forming that bond between them. So when they get up to the middle school and they have that alert class, the Project Alert, they know who it is already teaching them. So, I mean, I could come back with, we're going to teach this class this week, we're going to teach this class this week. I can't say definitive as to what's going to happen. I can tell you that, yes, we are teaching this class at the middle school, and it's going to go forward. We are going to make sure that we have a presence in the Shaker Lane school on a regular basis.
And then could you talk just a little bit more about in terms of what, because I think I also watched your presentation on the Selectmen's meeting too. So,
again, that's how I kind of went off of it, because I think all of you have seen the presentation. So
in terms of the work with Neshoba Tech, in terms of what's the town's responsibilities, what's support?
So it's not our responsibility, but we have residents of this town that go to school there, and when something happens over there, we need that liaison. We can't just have, I can't keep sending one of the detectives over there to find out what's going on. I can't send an officer over there. It's better if we have somebody that deals with the CBJ, community-based justice, that goes to that meeting on a monthly basis, to have that relationship with that school resource officer, has that relationship with the principal and the assistant principal over there, to say, hey, this is going on with one of your residents, or this is going on with one of your students, be able to have that connection, to give them the same opportunity that we have here. I mean, many a times I can tell you that I was on the phone with Cheryl or John, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I had that relationship with the assistant principal, Matt Ricard, at Neshoba Valley Technical School. And Matt is now the principal there now, so unfortunately, even though I'm chief, I'm still getting phone calls from him. Kind of clear it up a little, Daryl?
Yeah, that's
okay, great.
I have lots of thoughts. I guess, so trying to do a little research on the topic myself, I wasn't really able to find much definite support that SROs bring down school violence or cut down in the number of suspensions or a lot, you know, for every study I found that had a positive effect, there was one that had a negative effect. There were studies that showed concern for the school to prison pipeline.
That's a great article that you read too. You know, it showed that there was a shooting in 2015, 35 of them were dead. 2016, there was 25. 2017, there was 43. That's just 3 years that they actually talked about school shootings. And no, there's not enough statistics in those 3 years or in mass shootings to prove that they're actually proven safe. We can't say that it's gonna, the SRO is actually gonna be in the building if a school shooting happens. And I'm not looking, and I hope you guys understand that that's not what I'm looking for, to put a gun in the school.
And I'm not talking about just
Okay.
for school shootings. I mean, overall school climate,
Mhm.
overall, you know, fights in schools, you know, any sort of violence or disruptive behavior. I didn't find a lot of evidence that said an SRO was helpful. And for every study that I did find that said that, yeah, you know, fights went down or, you know, or school climate had a positive effect. I also found one that had a negative effect, that, you know, there were more arrests where usually it would just be handled by school officials. So I guess that's part of my concern, is that I wouldn't want to try to solve a problem and inadvertently cause another problem.
And if I could just speak to that a second, Erica.
Yeah.
I understand what your concern is, and I can say that we are putting and have been putting very well-trained, well-diverse, well-rounded officers into the school with the proper training that they need so we can avoid a conflict like that. A lot of the time when we have an officer in there, just the presence alone deters a lot of the small fights in the cafeteria. I bet you if I asked John right now, he probably hasn't seen a major fight in the cafeteria in 5 years. Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
In the cafeteria.
Not
Right, yeah.
in the cafeteria, not even in the building.
In the building?
Yeah.
No.
If I can put them on the spot a second, if you don't mind. All the principals, if there is an officer in the school, would the officer, because the student body knows them, would it deter some of these small, minuscule stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis in other schools where there's probably not an officer?
Yeah, I think I said this to you, because I've known you for so many years now, that, you know, we worked together when we were SRO, and he was absolutely right. I just want to comment and thank you for all those evenings I called you about a situation at school, and it was after hours and you handled it. So the relationship between the administrator, the first-hand trust is imperative too. We helped a lot of families out together, and the other SROs that I've worked with since have done the same. I think, you know, the physical presence sends a message to the student body of reassurance, especially in the aftermath of, unfortunately, too many horrific shootings around the country in public places, whether they're at a school or not. Vegas was last October 1st. I was at a country music festival. There were a lot of families unnerved by that. The actual physical presence of a police cruiser in front of the school sent a visible, you know, noticeable, you know, image to the community that the police were there to support and protect. And I think, you know, I certainly you know, can speak to that. It is, to answer your question, absolutely. It's a comforting presence. It's reassuring. Kids often would seek you out for guidance at the high school level for things that had nothing to do necessarily with being in trouble. There was the guidance on motor vehicle issues more often than not. How many times did you get questions about that? So
that's one of the
you know, licensing, the graduate licensing law, just managing the vehicles. I think that at the high school it's a little bit, it's a lot different, but than say at Jacob and Russell Street. But I would say yes, the presence of a police officer in the building has a deterrent effect, but a reassuring presence. It's not just about, you know, and because the way it's carried out in Littleton, I don't know what it's like in other communities. There are some other stories that were national news where police officers, I mean, I'm very clear with boundary setting with the police officers and the SROs around, this is handled by school, it's a disciplinary matter. If a kid is disruptive, You know, police officers want it, they're so eager to help, but I have to say, nope, we got this, teachers got this, you need to stay here because this is a school issue and we handle this. In fact, I have them have to stay, often have requested and they honor it all the time. You can't come to this meeting with this kid or with this parent. It's not a police issue. We do a very clear boundary setting. And our MOUs often develop beyond what we have currently with the police department. Keith was just telling, he was at a presentation today about legal aspects of student discipline with a very well-regarded public school attorney. And she described an MOU that can be developed with SROs, because information sharing is important. We're bound by FERPA not to share certain things. If that, if that's one of your concerns around, because you're right, there are things that absolutely traditionally have been handled, minor disciplinary issues, even significant ones sometimes, but not criminal ones, that need to be handled by school administrators and staff, not by SROs, and the police recognize that and respect our boundaries.
I think the question was more, there isn't research out there that clearly indicates that having a presence of a resource officer has a positive effect on school climate, reduction in suspensions, etc. I would make the statement that there are so many variables involved in looking at those factors. It would be virtually impossible to isolate those variables and do a study that really had any merit within the research community. You can't, for example, study 15,000 students in various high schools and say, look, administration, you're not going to be involved in anything for 2 months, and we're going to see what the resource officer does. Teachers, you're not going to be doing any counseling. We're going to leave this solely up to the resource officer to determine whether or not it makes a difference. It's not practical, and it would be perhaps dangerous. So I don't think you're going to see any research, what I call pure research, that's going to have the validity and reliability that one would say, oh, this is a great piece of research. That's not going to happen because it's so complex. I mean, we've seen some things in our nation and beyond in the past 30 years that have really changed the way we view schools, churches, malls, and it has brought about an increased awareness. I just read a survey the other night. I couldn't get the details I needed to feel comfortable giving it to or sending to the school committee in terms of whether I felt it was a valid article. But one conclusion that they had drawn is that the number of parents that are concerned about sending their students to school and their safety has increased last year, and this year it had actually decreased since the 90s. If you go back to the late 90s, we had a very unpleasant incident in the western United States, and that heightened awareness brought those numbers up. I believe it was 32% of parents at that time had some concerns about the safety of their students when they were sent to school. So it's back up in the low 30% in 2016 and 2017. So it is having a pronounced effect on how parents feel about the safety of their children when they send them off to school. Right or wrong, this is the world that we live in this day and age.
Cheryl, do you have a comment?
I must look like I want to say that. I think the school safety issue is one part of the school resource officer, but just to share one example, about a week and a half ago, Officer Janakis was at the middle school at dismissal, and we noticed that there was a group of boys on bicycles waiting to go home, and one student was having difficulty with his bike, and so we went over, and it turned into this whole impromptu lesson about how your helmet should fit, and how you should wear your helmet correctly on your head, and how you ride your bicycle safely home. And he had a whole conversation with them about, being on the sidewalk and where you should be, and that wouldn't have happened otherwise. That wouldn't have happened. And so, that's the other piece that I think is really important, is just those little impromptu things that happen all the time when the resource officer is in the building. You never know what it's going to be. Start with a student question or a bicycle repair. But that's the important piece of having another person on site with us.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Eric, other comments?
My only other comment was how the presence of a gun in the lower elementary schools, and how are you going to ensure safety?
Well, it's much like a fireman that has a fire extinguisher. A gun is basically one of our tools that we carry on our belt. Obviously, when we start going into the younger schools, they will be in uniform. They'll be able to address themselves in uniform. It shows that presence. It shows, okay, this is a police officer. He's wearing his hat. He's wearing his vest. He or she has their gun belt on. What's on their gun belt? Those are a lot of questions that come up right away. And you know, and that question is asked of police officers every single day. Oh, is that your gun? Are you going to shoot somebody? And you have to educate them immediately. Now, it's like a fire extinguisher to put out a fire. If in fact the need arises and I need to keep you safe, some way, shape, or form, it's there on my side. And that's how we go about that. I would not send a school resource officer into a school without being armed. They are a police officer first and foremost.
Maybe Principal King could add to that. I had the pleasure of taking Detective Giannakis around Schcmte School a number of times, been in classrooms with him, and as we're both interacting with students, and you know, maybe it was just the days I was there, I don't recall any student bringing attention to the gun that he was carrying at all. He was in full uniform. So I'm not saying that happened every day. That was something I was watching for myself because it was kind of interesting. Michelle, you're there much more often than I am, so.
Officer Wazinski stops in and has lunch quite often.
Officer Wazinski comes in a lot and has lunch with the kids. She sits down with them, she talks with them, and Officer Giannakis is there as well. I haven't heard of any of those conversations. I think they like visiting with them, they like seeing them in the building. I haven't noticed any of that. They were there today for our safety drill. It was more reassuring, I think, than it was.
I was actually concerned about the physical having the gun. There was a issue last year where a third grader actually was able to discharge an officer's gun in the school, and
in Littleton? No.
Not in Littleton. No.
Jesus.
Oh.
What?
I don't remember the email.
No.
We both have white hair.
But the report I read about it was that it was in the officer's holster, and that, you know, it wasn't something that could have been done except by a tiny little hand, you know?
Yeah, so.
And
we, and I don't mean to chuckle over that, but I just spent $700 on the officers all to have new holsters, and they're similar to the one I have on it now. Everything's completely covered up except for my handle. The only way to release the gun is from the backside with my thumb. No one else can release it. We go through over 40 hours of firearms training per year. It's above and beyond what the MPTC requires, and that's every single officer, whether you're a school resource officer, a detective, or a patrol officer or sergeant. Every officer goes through that training. Last week we had the sheriff's department here. Every officer came off shift, went into the trailer. It was an indoor shooting, live rounds, with scenarios. It was all based on school shootings. It was based on traffic stops. It was based on mental health issues within a stop or questioning of somebody. And it wasn't just pull your gun out and start shooting. It was shoot or not, talk to the person, be interactive with that person, see how they're handling themselves. If it calls for a need for you to draw your weapon, then that's when you would do that. Again, we go above and beyond for firearms training for this town. That will not happen.
thank you.
Yes. Couple quick questions about the presentation itself, and then the deeper stuff. And this might be a better question for Kelly, have we had concerns from teachers and administrators asking for this SRO position? And if so, how long have they been asking for this? Or if not, are there other needs that administration and teachers have been asking for?
They haven't. I haven't heard teachers ever ask me if we could have an extra resource officer. But I always, when I have questions like this, I always ask, what context do they answer the question with? And of course, I don't think there's any teacher or any administrator, including the superintendent, that wouldn't like more police presence in schools. I think there's a lot to be gained from that, and the relationship building is very important and near to my heart. And that opportunity to see a police officer as somebody that is caring and wants to help, rather than a traditional image of a police officer where you are unsure, you think you're in trouble, and you don't feel comfortable. So I think there's benefit there. In terms of what we need in our district at this point in time, when we look at budgetary needs, our out-of-district placements are on the rise. Like any school district, we start our budgeting process early, so it's more almost a 2-year catch-up at times for out-of-district placements. Chairman Fontanella is very aware of that, being on the budget committee for many years. We also have identified the need to bring in a therapeutic mental health counselor. We're in the process of trying to find somebody that meets our criteria. We have more and more students, like every district, that has an increased number of students requiring mental health supports and therapy. And there are programs that are emerging outside of the public school system, or specialized programs within collaboratives that are offering those services. But the only difference is they have a therapeutic counselor, and those costs are fairly high to send a child there, and really no need. Our philosophy is to keep as many students as we can within our district, because we believe that's where they should be educated, unless we don't have the ability to do so in terms of number of students we need to offer the program, etc. So that to me is a top priority at this point in time. In terms of social and emotional learning, which is very key to helping reduce violence in schools, violence in the community, our assistant principals are key in helping that happen. One of their primary roles is to work with teachers on their classroom management plans and provide that support when students are having trouble regulating, etc. And so that, to me, is near and dear to my heart as well. What we have here today is a lot of unknown variables, like any community, in terms of what is FY20 going to bring. And when I actually had a conversation with our town administrator about this, and simply said, if we're thinking about expanding programs in any department, including our department, we have long conversations about why this need is important and how are we going to make it happen. And with our budget, we still are paying for reduction in kindergarten tuition costs out of revolving funds, which is not sustainable. So we're really waiting, especially as a superintendent and a business manager, how is all this going to get rolled in FY20? And I think a resource officer is a wonderful idea, but where does it fit into that bigger picture? And what I said to the town administrator is, you need, in my opinion, you need 2 plans. If you want to try to fund a resource officer this year, you need to identify the revenue. But that's not good enough, because there needs to be sustainability. So you need to figure out in FY20 where that revenue is going to come from. And what I'm looking for as a superintendent is that revenue is going to be other revenue that's not going to affect the needs of other departments. We're not going to be horse trading, for example. So we can put an employee in one department and take an employee away in another department. All that is key to the success of any department meeting the needs of a community. So for me, I think everybody knows where I stand. We need resources. I talk about our per student costs and compared to the state. I mean, there's quite a void in terms of the money the money we would have if we were at the average per student cost in the state. But at the same time, I mean, we're not the only department in town, and the police department is also faced with the same thing we are in terms of increased diversity of population in our community, and adjusting to that as well. So personally, what I'd like to see is a commitment from the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, that they understand the value of this position and that they're going to make it happen, and also do everything they can to help the other departments move forward as well. And the town has been great at figuring this out, but
Yeah,
I
Kelly
think
and I
that's
had
what's lacking.
Many conversations over this exact thing. I don't want to see this fail. So I want to, if we do this, I want to make sure it goes forward. Like I said, this originally was a pitch for 2020. However, it was brought that, if we can find the resources now and the funds now, let's push this forward now. So therefore, that's why I'm here. It's definitely not shooting from the hip or anything like that. This was a plan for 2020. However, it was brought to my attention that some people and some other members of the board wanted this brought forward, and they thought it would be a good idea since it was so good.
Another question was, so if we have the SRO in like the younger schools, one of the things you were mentioning was, kids freely come up and talk to you about their problems. And in a younger setting, I don't know,
I think in the younger setting, Jen, you'll see that it's going to break that barrier down from that stoic cop to that human that's behind that.
Well, and I guess though, my question though is, a lot of the SRO's job is to, look at kids who might be having a bad day or facing bullying or having some trouble. And I don't know how it works at the high school. Is the SRO ever like pulling a child out and saying, hey, you look like you have something going on and we need to discuss this now? Or is it all based on the student's ability to go?
No, that happens more often than not. And I can't speak to Officer Giannakis and how he's been interacting, but if we know that something happened the night before, like there was a domestic at a house and there was kids there, our first phone call is to Keith and to John. Or if there was a younger child, I'll be calling Michelle first thing or sending her a text message saying, hey, I'm giving you a heads up. We had an incident already this year at the Schcmte school where Michelle and I were in contact almost immediately in regards to something like that.
I guess my concern is not with things that are obvious to you, but, the quiet kid sitting in the corner who's not going to jump up and say hi to you, or maybe nobody knows anything's going on at home. So I just don't know how that kind of situation
That's where we interact with them quite often.
Okay. And so this is a change in their behavior, and that's something you do.
One of the things I used to pride myself on when I was the SRO was every morning, myself and Fernando and John Bucky at the time, I don't know John Bucky or not, but he was the principal there. We would greet the kids, and it was hilarious. We would recognize the kids. Hey, we got to pay attention to Johnny today. Did you see his look when he got off the bus? Or, hey, it was obvious that Susie had some issues going on this morning. Do you want to talk to her? Want guidance to talk to her? It's not just the SRO that's going to hit that. It's a collaborative effort between the entire district. Is it the guidance counselor that needs to see her? Hey, Chris, can you go talk to her? Or is it a mental health referral at this point? So, but yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think that already happens. But in the younger grades, I think it'll happen more often than not.
One other thing, something Kelly was saying about, getting like a mental health professional counselor. I think, we do have to look at the overall well-being of all the students, and not just try not to be as reactionary and working with kids all the time. And I think, you're saying that's what this does by introducing the SRO early on in the process, or their school years, right? Yeah.
12th grade.
So I just want to make sure, we are focusing on, full overall student health. You can take a look at the risk behavior survey from 2014 and 16 to see where the problems are right now with bullying, students carrying weapons. These are the top 5 or however.
Right.
Bullying in school or online, self-harming behaviors, and stress during school. So these are the kinds of things that, I don't know where the, which kinds of professionals will work in either situation. You know, I'm not an expert on all this, but I want to make sure that we are looking at actual data that we do have in town, and just making sure we're making fair decisions
Absolutely.
for overall, you know, wellness of all the students.
I agree.
You know, thinking about it, I don't think there's any question that, you know, there's a benefit to having school resource officers in general. You know, we've had one since the program started. I think we have a strong district. I really appreciate the amount of additional presence we've had in the buildings. It's gone beyond both, you know, the police department and the administration after the unfortunate events last spring quickly got together and said, look, you know, what can we do right now today? And it was changing the patrol patterns a little bit, getting a car out in front of the buildings more often, patrol in the cafeterias and the hallways more often. So I really appreciate that. And I think that regardless of whether or not we add a second SRO now or later, you know, whether it's, you know, January or if it's in the 2020 budget cycle or it goes a little bit farther down the road in terms of as we manage all our priorities that the town has and that the school department has, I know that that kind of work is going to continue. And I think that's important, and I think it's extremely beneficial. Adding a second SRO, there's no question in my mind that it will be beneficial. I think it's difficult to quantify, probably impossible to truly quantify, but I think that the things that you cited, Matt, are real. You know, everybody recognizes them, and we've been hearing it from, you know, different parents and even students who have, you know, yeah, corroborated that type of stuff. The issue is where does it fall into the overall priorities that we have as a district and then, of course, with the town? Because I've never seen a budget cycle where all the asks have been funded in a given year. It really comes down to a question of where is the priority and what is going to be the greatest benefit for the amount of money we think we can spend. And my hesitation in funding this now, I don't think that it would really be all that difficult to do it in terms of dollars. But let's not kid ourselves. If we fund it now, we're funding it in 2020. There's no debate. There's no question. We'd all be, look, we know we would make it happen. We always find a way to make the important things happen. And if we felt like this was as important enough to do it now, we would do it again during the 2020 budget cycle. My concern is that we will have committed ourselves to that priority without question, without balancing it with the other priorities that are going to emerge both from the school department budget and other things that the town wants to do. And I have significant hesitation to do that, significant hesitation. I think that we have a very strong implementation of the SRO program. Some of the stuff that you talked about, Erica, I think are in districts that have different socioeconomic profiles and more different problems than we typically face in Littleton. And that's why they've had more trouble getting the benefit without some of the, as you said, you know, creating different kinds of problems. I think we've done a great job as a community of avoiding that kind of thing, and I'm confident that we would do it again, be able to maintain that ability with the second SRO. But I also think that we need to have a full discussion about, do we want to add more mental health counseling? Do we want more teachers? If simply reducing the class size, room sizes, can go a long way towards making sure that unruly behavior doesn't escalate to a point where it becomes a very unfortunate incident. You know, do we want, you know, we have 3 assistant principals now. We're with one building that doesn't have one yet. So I really want to make sure that as a community, we have a full, robust debate and evaluation. And then if we decide that the second SRO and this and that can fit into the budget, and those are the 3 things we're going to do, and the next 3 things we're going to push down to 2021. Now we know why we did it, and we know why we didn't do the other things. And I would be much more comfortable knowing that we had that opportunity to have that discussion, and then much more confident that we made the right decision. We'll make a good decision. I don't think it would be there's no way it's going to be a bad decision to add a second SRO. It's just a question is it the best decision relative to all the other requirements and the limited resources we face every year. So that's where I'm standing with it. Having said that, you know, there was a comment at the meeting you made, the presentation you made to the Board of Selectmen about, you know, kind of, because you said it was really, this was a 2020 discussion, and then one of the selectmen decided, well, if it's that good an idea, let's think about it. I'm fine with continuing to have a discussion amongst the boards and seeing what we think as a community want to do, but I will be having the same objection I just voiced about process, personally. If that discussion does want to continue between the, you know, the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee, along with the town administrator, the chief, and the superintendent.
Yeah, I got to say, you know, I mean, I support the SRO concept, and I really like the, I call it, I jotted down my notes here, evolution of the roles there between how the police department interfaces with the community in general is evolved over time. I think the police have always starting to take the edge just in their general interactions, that it's not just somebody that only comes when there's a problem, just like hopefully fire department presence and the other pieces there. Just like the assistant principal is not just the disciplinarian, they have other roles within the school where you're blocking him. Right, because those create the barriers which I think prevent the things there. I think the SRO is another means for us to continue breaking down that. I'd like us to continue looking at the other things there. But my reluctance is committing to the FY20 budget by saying yes now. I really need to see the school-based priorities and how that's going to factor into our total budget build, because at the end of the day, it's the town's budget. You know, whether we call it the police budget or the school budget, it's still going to come out of the same pot of money there. And again, it's not, to me, it's not a debate about the value of the SRO position. I need to make sure I have the input from our administration about what all the other priorities that we have are before I'm comfortable committing the funds for it. And I agree with I mean, once we say yes, we've said yes on it, and it would look really foolish for us to do a position for 3 months and then terminate it.
And that's the way.
You know, and I'm just not comfortable at this point committing the FY20 budget commitment without. I haven't even seen we haven't even gotten our first expenditure report yet for how we're doing on this fiscal year before even seeing the first budget build coming back to us for it there. So that's my reluctance right now. It's not about the position of the SRO. I see the value that it has with our students and in the community there. It's really about the budget process and ensuring that we've looked at all of our priorities and needs before making that final decision.
No, that's great. And like I said, I'm being upfront with you guys. What you're getting from us for the last 15 years now has been all out of our budget. And it's going to continue to come out of our budget because I feel very strongly about it. I'm just looking for a little help this year. And you know, right now I'm committing an officer in front of the school every single morning and every afternoon because we have no one down there right now. So I hope that you guys take everything into consideration when you do continue your talks and realize you're getting 3 in 1. You're getting a counselor, a cop, and a teacher. So I know what you're saying on mental health and everything, but just when you're thinking about this, when you guys are having your further discussions in regards to this, just remember what I'm giving you, what I'm providing. Okay?
No doubt.
Thank you.
We expect to see you again as this process unfolds. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not going away, let's put it that way.
You live right here.
You're in my house.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Chief. Thank you.
This is actually because the way the agenda goes, we are at the second segment for interested citizens. I will ask if there are any interested citizens who would like to talk specifically about the second school resource officer. We'll start with that. Sorry,
I did want to mention.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get to it.
Just make sure.
Because I'm sorry, I'm really going through a little bit of a kabuki dance. There are no interested citizens in the room, but I just wanted to make sure we adhere to the process that we do have an opportunity. And again, I expect that we're going to have debates about this throughout the budget process, and I I think it's going to go a lot like the full-day, tuition-free full-day kindergarten debate went, where it was something that we debated multiple times over the budget process, and we afforded multiple opportunity for community input. And I fully expect we will do that and support that. So anybody that's watching at home, please don't feel like this is certainly I think we conveyed that point very clearly, that this is the beginning of a discussion, not the end. No decisions have been made about anything. And as soon as we see that there's community input that wants to come out, we will allow it right away.
I was going to say, and to make sure there's no misunderstanding in terms of understanding and the thing there, I wouldn't mind us even just stating that we would like it considered as part of the administration's budget bill.
Yes, I think that's been implied.
Not something that's off to the side and we'll debate it later.
Right.
I would encourage it to be part of the build process and the prioritization.
That's a given.
So that it's built into our discussions.
We've had enough feedback from the community and from Chief Bernard that we would be remiss if we just dismissed it out of hand or left it to Chief Bernard to carry the water and run with it out of his budget, because it's clearly, it's budgeted in the police department because it is a police officer, but it impacts our budget and the services that we provide, which is what the budget's all about at the end of the day. It's about how do we provide the best level of service to the students and families in Littleton, and this is a part of it. So we will definitely, as a budget subcommittee and as an overall committee, it will be right there, front and center.
That's what I mean. I just want to make it clear that it's not that we're trying to push it off.
Correct. No, I don't anticipate a scenario where we come up with our priorities and Chief has his priorities, and then we're going to debate them separately. This will clearly be on our priority list, even though it will be inherently funded through the town operating budget and the police department budget. But we will put it on our list of priorities, and then we will have that debate about where the administration feels it falls and all the other things they want to get done and how we feel about it.
Because by the time we get to April, last year we had the list of the things and we had to draw some lines as to where we could fund below.
Yeah, it will be on that list.
We rearranged that list even from, from the administration.
That's exactly how I envision it transpiring.
Okay.
Good.
And I just wanted to add that clearly school safety is on the minds of parents and the community, and that it's a priority for all of us. And so, we just want to make sure that we're funding the most important ways we can to protect our students.
And it is clearly on the minds of the community, and we've all heard it, which is great and fine. But I just want to reiterate that we've had a strong SRO program. We've had a strong program beyond the SRO of police presence in the buildings, and it's accelerated since the last spring. And we've had significant commitment to social and emotional learning prior to all this. I think there's just a renewed emphasis from the community perspective, but from an administrative perspective, this has been something that we work on a regular basis. So, and that's why it'll continue. There's no question that it's not going to get left behind by any stretch of the imagination. So, I will let you talk about these. Are there any other interested citizens about any other business? No, they're not. Okay. All right. Did you want to bring up something on new business?
Yes. I would like to, I guess, next meeting discuss the Massachusetts ballot question number 3 about whether or not Littleton as a school committee supports.
Can you summarize quickly what that?
Yeah. So the question number 3 would remove protections for I'll just read this. A no vote would repeal a 2016 law that prohibits discrimination in public accommodations on the basis of gender identity. A yes vote would preserve the existing law, which currently protects people of no matter what their gender. So we have in the past supported other kinds of ballot initiatives, keeping in mind the best interests of our students. In so we don't have
Okay.
to make any votes today.
Right.
I'm just asking you guys to consider it so we can.
Is that all right? We'll put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now, and then give us time to all take a look at it and be ready to have a discussion about it, and then we can decide if we want to take a vote of support or not. Okay? So we'll put that on the agenda. Sure.
And at the very least, whether or not it's an actual vote, you know, consider writing, you know, a letter in support at the very least.
Yep, we'll have a discussion. Okay? All right. Any other new business? All right. Move into subcommittee reports, PMBC.
Let's see, at last week's, meeting, we talked to the building committee. The AD came in and provided recommendations on proceeding with basically option 1, which was the pole vault area laid out in the D ring area, but running short of the discus area there. We weren't going to run the whole piece there. So we've asked the design firm to prepare a bid package with that option and provide us an engineering estimate. Once that package is prepped, I've asked that to be then, we're not going to release that bid, request for bid, until the group that's interested in funding it can demonstrate that they can fund it, or the administration determines where within the budget that would occur. And I'd expect that to come either through the sponsoring organization about the fundraising, or the administration in a future school committee meeting.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that point. So unlike most capital projects, this one is a little unique in the sense that it was brought forward by the track coach, because he and we went over some of this. We previously had not competed in pole vault, now we do, so he would very much like to have a pole vault pit on site, which makes sense. But he also, to his credit, has worked to see if he could do some fundraising so that the cost is either zero or minimal to our budget. Whether or not that's true, we will be able to make a determination of once we have that bid package, and it'll give us some really good numbers to work off of, and that will allow Coach Saucier to show us where the money is, or not, as the case may be. And then depending on how that transpires, we can then see if it fits into the budget at all.
Yeah. So
along with all our other capital requirements.
Right. Yeah, it's a little blurred in terms of he's got two hats on in terms of track coach, but also in terms of representing the fundraising piece there, and just got to make sure those roles are clearly separated in terms of the parts of presentation.
And we'll leave that part of it to the administration and the athletic director. Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Anything else on the PMBC?
That's all.
Okay. Budget subcommittee. Matt is at Parents' Night in Waltham tonight. That's why he's not here. We set our calendar. We will, as we did last year, we'll be meeting every other Thursday on the Thursdays that we don't have our general meetings. We'll be meeting typically at 3:30 in the afternoon in the superintendent's office. And we will start next week, and then we'll get the budget process kicked off. So that's it for the budget subcommittee at the moment. Policy subcommittee?
Well, we have in your package this evening the revised meal charge policy. I tried to take our conversations from last meeting and put them into writing. I did do a little bit of wordsmithing. I thought as I was changing things, some of the sentence structure needed a little more tweaking. So you can see that the suggested revisions are in italicized blue, and the deletions are blacked out with a regular font, so to speak. I think I captured everything that you wanted in this one, but there were a lot of changes, to say the least. Certainly, Jen and I are willing to entertain discussions in terms of whether we hit the mark or not.
My only comment was under the payment section. If account balances remain unpaid, a notice will be mailed to parents indicated that they have an outstanding balance that needs to be paid. I just didn't, maybe that we should specify either how long it would be before we sent those out, or how much the account would be overdrawn before we sent those out.
I think as a policy, we don't get too involved with the procedure of how it's carried out.
Again, so the last time this came up, and I have my own personal issues with it.
Experience.
Yeah. I just would, leaving it vague, I think, it could, is it going to be the end of the year when this goes home and someone's going to get a bill for $300, or it's going to be, I don't think it should be that wide
We
open.
can certainly give direction, beyond what's specified. The issue is that if we're very specific in the policy and then circumstances change, then we're going to go back and change the policy.
Well, that's why, so a time limit would be.
I tried to incorporate that, believe it or not. I was thinking about you.
Maybe I missed it.
I was thinking about you when I was tweaking it, but the first statement on the parents, guardians are responsible for all meal payments to the food service program. Then we route notices of low or deficit balances will be sent directly to parent guardians via email. If account balances remain unpaid, a notice will be mailed to the parents indicating that they have an outstanding balance that needs to be paid. If balances remain unpaid, parents will receive a phone call from the food services department. And then we progress from there. So my expectation as a superintendent is that we have constant communication with parents. We don't want to hound them, but they need to know that they have a deficit balance and not leave it until it hits the $300 range. That's, in my opinion, totally unacceptable. So that would be the protocols that I would be expecting in place for this.
And I've heard the concern, I've heard the worries, and I've had conversations about what that protocol and what those guidelines should be with our food service director, and we're working on a procedure that we can follow to do that, and it will not be yearly, trust me.
So yeah, I mean, my perspective from having done the policies in the past is we set up the thing, the guidance to the administration for the policy. The implementation is their responsibility. I think it's codified here. The superintendent shall ensure there are appropriate and effective collection procedures in place, which would identify all of those timelines at a procedural level that they handle. And I think at one point, Kelly, we talked about sort of the procedures booklet from all of the things that we've actually deferred. Carries a lot of responsibility. You know that? Well, which he does well at it. In terms of making sure that we have adequate documentation of all of the administration procedures that back up all of these policies. And I think the best place for those is in the hands of the administration, so that we're not micromanaging details, such as I want to even be careful by policy about whether we specify email or phone call or physical mail, because again, I don't think I wanted to tweet it out to them, but but I also don't want to be over specifying, some of the details.
In that case, I wanted to show progression. That's why we kind of left in there, and that was all over the policy. Those statements were not where they should have been. They were thrown in all over the place. And having a point of sale program, automated point of sale program, makes all the difference in the world, because it's so, in my opinion, it's easy to keep on top of these things, because it's all computerized, it's there, so it's a matter of, send this out. So it's not as if they're going through all these bills manually in this day. It's just instant. So it's a matter of getting those routines in place and making sure that they follow through with our expectations in terms of letting parents know. I remember vividly when my kids were in school. They very seldom ever came home and told me they had an outstanding balance in anything. So, and I was a superintendent of schools. So that communication is so important.
All right, are there any other comments? Concerns? ready to entertain a motion?
This is our second read, so this can be a motion to accept then, right? Make a motion. Was there any modifications anybody felt needed at this point? All right. I'll make a motion to accept policy EFD meal charge policy as presented in the packet tonight.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
Our first policy, Jen.
Thank you.
And we will have more coming down the pipeline. Jen sent me a number of policies, and we're going to get together next week, I believe it is. Or I have to check my calendar. Dorothy is still trying to arrange it. So it will become more of a regular addition to the agenda. Daryl, we would still really appreciate if you would bring some candies for us.
Is there any other business? Yep.
Just that the safety and security subcommittee met, and just all the schools did safety drills this past week, and from what I've heard, they all went very well.
We are going to get an update in November on that,
yeah.
right? More formal. Yeah.
Restocking the emergency buckets and looking into, and the fire chief was there as well, and talked about what was allowed in terms of barricades or stops and things, and what wasn't. So it's a good discussion.
All right, any other business? We will have a short executive session with no intention to return to open session.
I'll make the motion to move to executive session for the purpose of voting to approve executive session minutes and discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and not reconvene in open session.
Motion made second. This is a roll call vote. Erica?
Aye.
Daryl?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone.